Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Nikak. Ladies and gentlemen, I wish to welcome you all to this meeting of the Standing Committee on Agriculture, Environmental Affairs and Development Planning. It is today, Tuesday, the 18th of May at 1 o'clock, and this meeting is exclusively being held as a virtual meeting via MS Teams. A special word of welcome to our honourable members who are with us here today. Also, we're honoured to have a number of guests that indicated that they would like to not only join us in terms of our discussions, but also we are looking forward to some of your input. A hearty word of welcome to you. And then thank you very much. These meetings would not be possible without the very able assistance of our support staff. And also thank you very much to those officials from the Department of Agriculture. I do see some of you here as well, and I'll give you an opportunity to just quickly introduce yourselves. Can we start then just first with our honourable members that are currently online and that have joined us? As I've said, my name is Andrikus van der Westhuizen, chairperson of this committee. And I would like our honourable members of the committee first to introduce themselves as well.
Morning, Deirdre Bartman, member of the committee.
Matlodi Maseko, member of the committee.
Afternoon, everyone. Pat Maran, member of this committee.
Thank you very much. I don't know if Honourable Nkondlo can hear us at the moment, if she would be so kind to introduce herself as well.
No, thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. I'm member Nkondlo. I'm not a member of the committee, but member of transport. Thanks.
Good. Thank you very much, honourable members. Are there any other members of the WCPP that also joined us?
Chair, I saw the Honourable Smith, Daniel Smith, and I also saw the Honourable Duckmore.
If those members could just confirm their attendance, please. Honourable Maran, it seems as if they are not online.
No, Chair, yeah, I've noticed they are not online. They have been invited, but they are not in the meeting.
Yes, correct. Thank you very much. And then with that, I just quickly would like first to give Mr. Jacobs from the Department of Agriculture an opportunity to just introduce himself. And if he's got anybody with him, please do so, sir.
Good morning, Chair and members. Thank you very much. Daryl Jacobs, Department of Agriculture, and I'm joined by Douglas Shetepo and Brighton Shumba of my Rural Development team. Thank you very much, Chair.
Good. Thank you very much to you as well, Mr. Jacobs. And then we have also got a number of people from the Department of Transport and Public Works, officials that indicated that they would like to join us. If you could introduce yourselves.
Good afternoon, Chair. It's Ms. Viji Chetty, Acting Director for Provincial Traffic Services, Western Cape.
You're most welcome, Ms. Chetty. Any of your colleagues with you? Not at the
Honorable
moment.
Chair, Mr. Ahmed was supposed to have joined me. I don't think he's online as yet.
Good. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And then we're honored today to also have a number of representatives representing farm workers or employees in the agricultural sector. And I would like to give, if Mr. De Bruin has joined us, the Provincial Secretary from COSATU, if Mr. De Bruin would be able to just introduce himself, and if there are others with you, sir, please feel free to introduce them as well.
Chairperson, good afternoon. My name is Paul Bester. I'm from COSATU, Western Cape. Comrade De Bruin is just attending our COSATU National CEC currently. So I'm with him in the same office. I'm the provincial organizer and educator of COSATU Western Cape, and hence me being present then on behalf of COSATU at this present moment. Thank you, Chair.
Good, thank you very much. Did I hear your surname as Bester?
That is correct, Chairperson. Paul Bester.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bester, and a hearty welcome to you. Can I just check with you? We were expecting some input on behalf of COSATU from Mr. De Bruin. Will you be handling that today?
That is correct, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. And then also, I believe that a representative from FAWU, the Food and Allied Workers Union, may also be with us. Mr. Linnertz, are you online? No, it doesn't seem like it. And then I was also informed that Mr. Helu, the representative from the Western Cape, or Western Cape Provincial Secretary for the Agricultural Food and Allied Democratic Workers Union, that he may have been delayed. I did receive an apology. I don't know if Mr. Helu has been able to join us yet. And then the last representative of agri-workers that I hope to be able to welcome here is the representative from, is it Bavusa? Are you online?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. If you could just state your name and surname for the record, please, sir.
I'm Hilton Witboy from Bavusa Union. I'm representing the farm workers of Bavusa.
You're also most welcome, Mr. Witboy. And then I don't know if Agri Western Cape has joined us. If anybody else would like to introduce themselves, please continue. I see JS, which might be Mr. Strydom.
Good afternoon, Chair and honourable members. Yanni Strydom from Agri Western Cape.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Strydom, for also making time to join us here today. Honourable members and guests, as you know, we as a committee have been attending to the whole issue of the safe and dignified transport of farm workers. As you may know, we've had a number of incidents on our roads during the particularly last harvest season for grapes and deciduous fruit in the Western Cape, and people have even lost lives during some of those incidents, which just, is upsetting, because nobody, should go to work fearing for his or her life. And we are looking for input and possible solutions to improve the safety and the dignity of these people, particularly seasonal workers that don't stay on the farm, but that need to travel relatively long distances to and from farms in order to assist bringing in the harvest every year. And with that, I would just like to set the agenda, and that is what we are busy with at the moment, looking for solutions to a challenge which is obviously not limited to agri workers, but which has been highlighted by incidents in which agri workers have been involved. I do recognize now the hands of Honorable Maran, and then there was another hand as well. Honorable Maran, will you go first, please?
Thanks, Chair. Chair, I just want to check with you because in the first meeting that we had on the 10th of February, you as the Chair finds it necessary to invite the previous head of provincial traffic Africa into our meeting. I've looked at the number of people or those who've been invited to this meeting, and I don't see that particular name there. Is there any reason why Mr. Kenny Africa has not been invited to this meeting?
Honorable Maran, to respond to you, yes. Mr. Africa was invited because of his vast knowledge and experience of particularly road safety in the Western Province as the previous traffic head, and he made his input. And obviously our meeting is a open meeting, but a number of people have not been invited to make input again. The same with the accident analysis unit from Stellenbosch municipality. We invited them to come and share their knowledge with us, which they've done, and obviously that has been recorded in our minutes, and obviously has also been taken into account with our resolutions up to now. So it's just a matter that they came in as experts, gave their input, and then obviously exited the discussion in that regard. I hope that answers your question, Honorable Maran.
Chair, there's a number of other people who were present in the first meeting who are present in this particular meeting. I just thought, Chair, because of the employer side, workers' representatives who were not present in the first meeting, it should have made sense to have Mr. Africa again in this particular meeting so that they could also hear his expert opinion that he gave in the first meeting. But if that's the reason why he's not been invited, Chair, then there's nothing that I can do. I just thought he should have been here so that they also get first then the opinion that he gave to us in the first meeting.
Yes, yes. No, thank you, Honorable Maran. Honorable Maran, I can also tell you, or just inform you and other members, that we were also hoping to have some more knowledgeable people regarding road safety to join us here today. I've been advised that the major agency in South Africa looking after road safety is the Road Traffic Management Corporation, and we've reached out to them on numerous occasions to come and also give their expert input today. And unfortunately, we've not, after an initial positive response or acknowledgement of receipt, we haven't received further feedback from them. And unfortunately, we will have to do without their views on the possibilities to improve road safety in the Western Cape. Thank you. I do see that Sakvu Boland, his hand is also raised, and then Honorable Marais.
Thanks, Chairperson. I just want to introduce myself. It's Gerrit Willemse from SACTU, affiliate of COSATU. I'm dealing with agriculture for SACTU.
Mr. Willemse, you're also most welcome. Thank you for joining us, and I'm glad you could link onto this meeting. And we're looking forward. I trust that you will also be making an input later today. Over to you then, Honorable Marais.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman, I just want to bring it to the attention of members that while we are grappling with this issue and meeting after meeting after meeting, the farm workers are in dire straits. They have had a complaint from one farm where the farmers now said, okay, you must now provide your own transport and see how you get to the farm. I got a letter here saying that they must club together now and pay 1,000 Rand a week to get transport to the farms. While we are arguing here about details, I think we've got to pick up speed and find solutions because the farm worker is suffering while we are playing politics.
Good. No, thank you very much, Honorable Marais, and that is obviously why we are here today. And I do hope that none of us have ever tried to play politics. I don't know what gave you that perception. But if you would like to share that with us later on during the discussions, please do. But I, from my side, can assure you that this issue is something which I feel very strongly about, and that should not be politicized, but particularly not for party political gain, but that we should find a solution which, and I think you've highlighted that just now, Honourable Marais, is acceptable to both the employees and the employers, because the situation that you have just sketched is particularly one that we are concerned about, that any additional costs in this regard will unfortunately, or we've got the danger of those costs that will maybe devolved to that of the laborers. If farmers now say, listen, this is just giving me a bad image, and therefore I'm not into public transport, I'm into farming, and therefore let's get a public transport entity to rather take that on that role. So I can assure you that is a concern, and in discussions between myself and Honourable Maran, we have also, he has highlighted that, and we really want to find a solution that will avoid that kind of situation where workers eventually have to pay to improve their safety. And I'm not always sure if the solution that they will now find is a safer one. Walking in the dark to farms, making use of informal transport, etc., may even prove to be more dangerous. So thank you very, very much for that then. Good. So, honourable members, there are a number of resolutions that we've already taken in the past. I must tell you that, at the previous meeting, we also, for example, contemplated the option of having or recommending that vehicles used for public transport be tested more regularly. And then the feedback from our traffic officials and people like Mr. Africa that Honourable Maran referred to was that unfortunately their perception is that there's a lot of corruption when it comes to the issuing of roadworthy certificates for vehicles. So I can just confirm that in that regard, we've written to the Standing Committee on Transport and Public Works. The chairperson there is Honourable Dalen Mitchell, and we've brought that under his attention, and I do hope that that issue will also receive the necessary attention in due course. Good. So can I just quickly ask our main guests, or the main input today, I expect will come from our Labour representatives, but perhaps if Mr. Jacobs would just like to fill us in if there are any recent developments from the department's side. Sorry, before you go, Ms. Jacobs, I see Honourable Maseku's hand, and then if Honourable Marais could just lower his hand unless he wants to come in again. Honourable Maseku.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, in moving forward, I'm not going to take such a long time. I want us to be cautious of not taking decisions on behalf of the other standing committee, so that they can prioritize this with the system that they have in place and the know-how of their portfolio. So we need, as we take the resolutions, also to make sure that we don't create a system where we are going to make promises that is not possible. We still have to go through the process of going to another standing committee. And I understand what Member Marais is saying, to shorten the process. So let's try, when we take resolutions, to have the resolutions that are doable from this side of the committee, and also keep in mind that some of the resolutions will be to forward to another committee that will have to prioritize that. But we can never say change your program. We can always say it's urgent that has to be attended to. So let's be mindful of, we are also trending in another portfolio. It would have been very wonderful if the whole committee of the transport was here, so that once and for all we deal with this and we take resolutions jointly as the two committees. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you. Thank you, Honourable Maseku. I think that is a timely reminder that when it comes to general traffic issues, that we should stay out of that, but that we should really try to address the situation that is unique to the agriculture industry and particularly to the industry in the Western Cape. We have been informed that none of the unions that would like to make an input today have prepared and what I call an e-presentation or a slideshow on their input, but that they would be addressing us verbally in this regard. Now, can I just ask to everybody that is online, and first I want to say thank you very much for the discipline in terms of your microphone use that you've exercised up to now. Please, in general, it's only the person that speak whose video and mic that should remain on. Thank you for switching off your mics when you're not taking part in this meeting. And also, we normally only have the person that speaks video on to also improve the quality of the connection. Please, if you need to flag my attention, raise your hand by using the raise your hand option on MS Teams. Or if you could also then just put your video on and unmute your mic, I will most probably see that. And I will also then be able to give you an opportunity at an opportune moment. Please also know that these meetings are being live streamed on YouTube. These are public meetings, and therefore we've got quite a wide audience, which we are grateful for. And if you need any technical assistance, please contact the ICT staff should you need assistance during the course of the meeting. It is unfortunately also my task to try and manage the time of this meeting. Our previous meeting already ran over time, and as you all know, we couldn't even invite or accommodate all those that wanted to make input, and that is why we're having this as a follow-up meeting. And therefore, I'm going to ask that each and every person that would like to make an input restrict him or herself to 10 minutes. Apparently, that has been communicated to you before. So I trust that everybody will participate and make it easy for me, and also that we are able to allocate a fair amount of time to each and every representative. Just for your knowledge, I intend to first ask Mr. De Bruin to give his input. Then we hope that Mr. Helu from our FADWU would have joined us. My apologies for the bird sounds there in the background. Then input from Mr. Linnertz from FAWU. Then Mr. Witbooi from Bavuso. And then I will give an opportunity to wrap up for the Department of Agriculture, and we'll give a last opportunity also for input by Mr. Jannie Strydom, should he feel the need at that stage. I trust that is in order with all of you. Mr. Jacobs, I've earlier indicated if you would just like to share one or two ideas with us, you can go ahead, and then it will be Mr. De Bruin from COSATU. Mr. Bester, sorry, I see your hand before Mr. Jacobs come in. Sorry, Mr. Bester, I realize you're standing in for Mr. De Bruin. My apologies. Mr. Jacobs?
Chair, no, it's fine, Chair. I just wanted to check if somebody is doing administration of, for the committee. When Mr. De Bruin, my comrade, is waiting. He says he's trying to link in, but nobody's accepting him. So I'm not sure if there's a waiting room or something that is not admitted into, because he's now ready to join us. And
fantastic. Will he then be doing the presentation, or will you proceed?
Okay, let me quickly, Chairperson, maybe we can do it like this. I know SACTU and AFADWU, who's our affiliates, they have representatives here. So maybe they can start doing their presentation. As COSATU will just, wrap up the presentation, and they can start so that I can just sort that logistically quickly with Mr. De Bruin while and don't waste the time of the committee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, great stuff. Thank you very much. So then just over to Mr. Jacobs again.
Thank you very much, Chairperson and members and stakeholders. Thank you for the opportunity to address you once more. There were a number of resolutions from the previous meeting, and I really just want to touch on one or two of those. And so one of the key ones was in terms of the district rural safety plans. I'm pleased to say that during the month of April, we had an opportunity to engage with all 5 district municipalities in relation to their district safety plans. And in relation to that and follow-up flowing from that engagement, I'm pleased to say that the issue of transportation of agri workers will feature as an agenda point at our Rural Safety Summit at the end of June. And all 5 district municipalities will also be given an opportunity to share in any proposed amendments and extent of inclusion of the issue of safe transportation of agri workers at the Rural Safety Summit. So that's on the agenda for the end of June. But we have had an opportunity to engage with all of them. Then we've also been in extensive engagement with the Road Traffic Management Unit of the Department of Transport and Public Works. And a number of pamphlets have already been distributed, and information from these pamphlets has been incorporated into the proposed Rural Safety Pocket Guide, which the department is currently busy with. We have shared previously as well that the Rural Safety Desk and dashboard is in operation. And then there's particular joint road safety awareness interventions that we are looking at rolling out, particularly one at the Dorans at the end of May. I don't want to give the exact date, otherwise people will be tipped off. But just to know that we are targeting particular site in the Dorans at the end of May. And then we're also working with Transport and Public Works on focusing on the R60, R62, R45 and R44 routes for specific road safety awareness sessions. I think, Chairperson, that I wanted to keep my input very focused, obviously, as a department, and my team is here to hear from all of the stakeholders, and I'll make some further remarks from the department at the conclusion of the inputs from the various stakeholders. So thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, Chair. You on mute, Chair.
Unmute yourself, Chair.
Okay. Just hold on. Chairperson, you are on mute. Unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I was welcoming Mr. De Bruin as well. Thank you so much, Chair. Honorable Maseko, thank you very much. Mr. De Bruin, there was a suggestion from Mr. Bester that we first give FAWU and also AFADWU an opportunity to present to us. I don't know if Mr. Michael Helu from AFADWU has been able to join us, but if not, then I hope that Mr. Linnertz would be able to proceed, and that you as the Federation representatives then perhaps summarize or make your input after your members have first made their input. I trust that that would be in order with you as well, Mr. De Bruin.
Is in order, Honorable.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. De Bruin. I do hope you feel welcome. Unfortunately, you missed the introductory remarks. So over to you, Mr. Linnertz, then. As I've said, 10 minutes, and we're really looking forward to your input. Thank you. You can proceed. I see your microphone is unmuted, but I do not hear you. Good, it then seems as if Mr. Linnertz have got some technical issues. Mr. Linnertz, we will ask the ICT staff to see if they could get hold of you via Ms. Nikak to just assist you in getting your sound back. No, it doesn't seem as if Mr. Linnets is audible at the moment. Good. And Mr. Helu, I believe, may still be stuck in traffic. Good. Can we then go back to, oh, there's Satu, is it Mr. Bester?
Chairperson, Mr. Willemse Saktu.
Yes, Mr. Willemse, please proceed.
Thanks, Chairperson. First of all, thanks for the opportunity. When I see the invitation, I was really glad that we are at this stage. I'm just sorry that we couldn't be part of the first session. But nevertheless, we did a short, drive through a couple of farms. So because what our aim was is to get from the horse's mouth in terms of farm workers, how do they feel about transport? We all know that farm workers are not happy with the mode of transport, in particular when it comes to winter. So our focus is basically a two-pronged focus, because our view was that yes, we should try our best to avoid deaths and in terms of accidents. But our second prong is also that our females, because when it's that time of the month and they are having their period, the mode of transport play also a role when they are being transported to work, in so that some of them, even rather than for that 3 to 4 days, would rather stay at home because they don't want to experience that journey from where they stay to the farm because of the terrible transport that they are using. So our focus would be that yes, we should definitely look at to get a better mode of transport. We are mindful of the fact that farmers only have so much to their disposal, but there should be maybe a compromise in terms of how we're going to deal with this matter. Some of the ideas that popped up is like to say, is there no way that we can perhaps go into a subsidy that maybe that come from the side of government to see or to assist those farmers that are not able to either acquire new transport or even hire public transport that are better equipped or in a better condition other than using trucks. The other one, just this morning on my way to work, because I'm driving on the R44 each morning to work, I just once again passed a couple of trucks that looks in a terrible condition. In particular, it's now winter, it's cold. Some of these trucks are not even covered. So we need to look at all those conditions that are within, first of all, within the reach of farmers, to make sure that they equip those trucks. And then, because we are obviously still within COVID, in the beginning there was a big hype. I could see in the mornings there was long queues. People have been testing temperature, but suddenly now I observed that workers are just getting onto the trucks and there's no spaces in between, because everyone just want to get to the workstations as soon as possible. So and I'm glad Mr. Jacobs were talking about these hotspots and these raids that they want to do. So we need to get back to the COVID protocol, since we are now in the third wave, Chairperson. So yes, besides the death, we should really also look in protecting our females, because when, like I said, when it's that time of the month, some of them, because you get mild, you get worse conditions, and then they rather just stay at home. That will be all from our side at this point in time, Chairperson.
No, thank you very much, Mr. Willemse, and you certainly made us think about a number of issues, and we appreciate that. We also appreciate your commitment to also help us find a solution in this regard, and thank you for that again. Can I just hear if we can proceed to Mr. Linnertz, if he has been able to resolve his microphone issues? It doesn't seem to be the case. Then also our representative from Afadvu. Do we have him online already?
Yes,
Yes.
I am available.
Yes, Mr. Elu, thank you very much. It's a pity that you had to rush like this, but we really appreciate your presence and we are looking forward. Your sound does sound a little bit distorted. So if you would be so kind just to speak as clearly as possible. And with that, I would then like to hand over to you, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm just going to move out of the. I'm in a venue that is very. That is very noisy. I'm actually joining another meeting after this one, but I hope that I'm very much clear now. Chairperson.
Yes, thank you. We hear you well. The moment the background noise has subsided, your sound improved tremendously.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please proceed. Mr. Hello, your microphone is being switched on and off. It's off at the moment. If you could toggle it to on again, and then you can proceed.
Chairperson, can you hear me?
We hear you. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. No, I was just moved from the area which I was. Thank you very much. I'm not gonna touch on the issues that Comrade Willem has already touched on, but indeed there is a number of concerning regarding transport for farm workers in the province that we are in, maybe perhaps beyond, but we are talking, I will focus on this issue. One is the overcrowding on these trucks by farm workers. And we are also taking into account the periods that we are in, living with the pandemic that has infected the whole world. And now that seems to be not really been taken as an issue concerning the third wave that we are experiencing now. And secondly, to that effect, it leads to a number of other issues in regards to the safety of the workers should there be an accident that occurs. The overcrowding causes even much more harm than if it was just a normal transport. Once again, we are in winter. Farm workers are not covered in some of these trucks. Some of them, they are trucks that normally would carry these vegetables or fruits enclosed completely with no windows. And workers are actually expected to be put in those trucks and be locked in there and open when they get into the farm. So those are the kind of experiences that farm workers are experiencing. And some would imagine that these things would happen far away, maybe around CRS and so on. And those issues are taking place just right here under our nose in the Philippi Oatry farms, where people are being picked up at your Philippi area, your Philippi West area. These are incidents that are occurring. And majority, which is concerning, once again, majority of farm workers are women. And once again, these issues that Comrade Willems has touched on are a serious issues that must be considered, that are affecting female workers in these areas. I think that is the, in a nutshell, he has covered the majority of the issues that I was hoping to cover.
Good, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Helu, and thank you very much, and congratulations on sorting out the quality of your sound. I could hear you quite well, and thank you very much. And we will certainly keep into account in our final recommendations the issue of the COVID infections, as well as then road safety from an accident point of view. So thank you for highlighting that as well. And you are welcome to stay online. We hope you would be able to follow the remainder of our meeting until your next engagement. That then brings me back to Mr. Linnertz. I don't know if Mr. Linnertz have been able to sort out his sound.
Chair.
Mr. De Bruin?
Yeah, before, I think from our side is the COSATU office. Maybe it has to do a short input, if it is fine with you, Chairperson.
Yes, you're welcome. I was under the impression that there was an earlier suggestion that Mr. Linnertz should go first, but I think he will probably then appreciate the opportunity to still try and sort out his sound. So if you are ready to go, Mr. De Bruin, we're looking forward to your input as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chairperson. Yeah, from our side, and COSATU was very clear whenever there's an incident happening there. We are very clear that if one looks at the current scenario, that the current mode of transport is not safe. It's unsafe for older workers, unsafe for female workers. On those current mode of transport, there's no safety belts. So if something happens, you will expect something worse to happen to those poor workers. There's no proper seating on those transports. There's no social distancing. So those are all issues that should be considered when a decision is made and when you guys deal with recommendations. Because and I fully support the view of the speaker from the Clothing and Textile Workers Union when it comes to look into possible subsidies to subsidize maybe public transport to ferry those workers to work and back. What have happened, I think, on the question of transport for school children, there was all of that carnage on the roads, and legislation was then introduced that forbids or banned the transport of kids in bakkies to school, etc. Now, I think the same should and can happen, where we should work on in terms of having policy or legislation in place that prohibit transporting of farm workers on bus, on trucks, or on bakkies. While we accept as COSATU that not all farm workers are by means to buy an additional taxi or a combi or a bus to ferry workers. However, and I think here's that where government must come in. I think here's the time for government to show to assist those vulnerable workers or to assist the farmers to ensure that the workers come to work very safely. We have seen the storms in this province, and that's just the beginning. We're expecting more storms, and sometimes these workers go to work in those buckets and those trucks that is not really fully covered. So as COSATU, we are very clear. We should come up with, government should come up with an idea they should come up with means to ensure that our workers are safe when they go to work, that our workers are safe when they come back home. And we can't allow things to go in its current form. It can't be business as usual while workers are at risk. For this year, there was 2 accidents already where people lost their lives. And I think we can't wait for another disaster to happen. So I think also this particular issue of transport has been raised. It's not the first time that COSATU expressed their disappointment in the way workers have been transported. It's been raised for years now, and I think the provincial government must come to the party to protect those vulnerable workers. I think national government can also assist from their side, but we should start here to ensure that our workers are protected, because we can't have a scenario that we are confronted with accidents on a daily basis. I think that's my input for now, Chairperson. Thank you very much.
Good. Thank you, Mr. De Bruin. It's much appreciated. Can I now also recognize Mr. Witbooi? Mr. Witbooi is representing, I believe, Bavusa. Mr. Witbooi, would you also like to address us?
Yes, Chair. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity. I'm the General Secretary of Bavusa Union, and we cover quite a lot of farms in the Western Cape. So we experience these things each and every day. I want to take you back, and what will happen in this meeting, I can hear that all of us will repeat some of the issues, but it then shows how important these issues is, and it must be looked into. But I want to take you back, Chair, to the Farm Worker Rights Charter. We were the driving force as Bavusa, and some of the other unions were part of that Farm Worker Rights Charter of 2017, where we address these issues about how farm workers are being transported on trucks and buckies worse than animals. We highlight that sentence in that Farm Worker Charter. And then we also then in the charter we cover the issue of the licenses of these vehicles, the roadworthy and those kind of things. And then we are quite concerned about the regulations, and we think the regulations must be changed, the transport regulations for farm workers, and it must be the same as other transport in the rules and regulations of companies, because these workers are sitting on these trucks and buckies where with no seating, they stand like animals, no social distance during this COVID time, no mask, all these kind of things that on a daily basis we need to look into these. What is the problem with that? It's also because of the fact that these law enforcement agencies in the municipality, they are not looking into this matter, because it can't be that we as the unions must each and every time go to municipalities complain about them don't have roadblocks, have a blind eye when it comes to these trucks. And it's a certain time of the day when these trucks are on the road, in the morning and in the afternoon. But there's no, they don't put effort into these and stop these trucks for transporting our workers like that. I'm staying in Verliesdorp, so I saw these things each and every day on a daily basis. And then I want to highlight it also that some
Sorry, Mr. Witbooi, I think you were accidentally put on mute. I don't know if somebody did that, but if you could unmute yourself.
Must I repeat everything now?
No. It was just the last few seconds when you said you stay in Verliesdorp and you witnessed this, and just shortly thereafter your microphone suddenly went on mute.
Yeah. So important for us to.
No, I'm afraid I think now somebody pressed an incorrect button. Mr. Witbooi has now left the meeting. I do hope that he would be able to join us again. While it is going to take a while for Mr. Witbooi probably to rejoin. Mr. Witbooi?
Chair, I don't know what went wrong on the other side, but it really pissed me off now, because you on stand and then all of a sudden you were mute, and then the next thing you offline. That is a problem for me. So I think I'm covered up until now.
Okay. No, thank you for Mr. Witbooi, and apologies for the technical glitches. you know, the alternate would have been for us all to travel to Cape Town with all the risks involved. So I really appreciate your indulgence in this regard. I also see Honourable Smith has joined us in the meeting. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair. Thank you.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Smith. You're also most welcome. And thank you for taking an interest in this important topic as well. I'm just wondering, I saw Mr. Leonard's name come up, and I received feedback that ICT tried to assist Mr. Leonard's in unmuting himself. Can I just ask Mr. Leonard's, would you be able to address us now? Mr. Leonard's? Okay. Honourable members, that then seems to be those that have been able to address us. And I again want to say thank you very much to everybody, Mr. Witboy, Mr. Helu, Mr. Willemse, and Mr. De Bruin. The one person that initially indicated that you would be standing in for Mr. De Bruin and perhaps then use the COSATU slot is Mr. Bester. Mr. Bester, are you covered?
Chairperson, yes, I'm from the same office as Mr. De Bruin, so I was going to stand in for him should he not be finished with that CEC, which he was obviously, and so
Yeah.
I'm in support of the Secretary's input. Thank you, Chair.
Good, thank you very much. Then I do know that we are also honoured to have some representatives from the Department of Transport and Public Works. I don't know if you would like to make an input at this point in time, Ms. Chetty. I can just say that we did receive feedback from your head of department, Ms. Goods, and that written feedback was circulated widely amongst the members, and it dealt with a number of issues, particularly regarding law enforcement, and they also listed some of the spot operations that your department has launched towards the later part of the season after our meeting, whereby trucks were stopped, whereby the paperwork, the licensing, and the roadworthiness of trucks were checked. And we really appreciate that, because I think what we've heard from a number of participants today is that unfortunately, you know, in some cases, people are not adhering to either the road traffic ordinances or the COVID-19 regulations. Ms. Chetty, would you like to come in at this stage?
Yes, Chairperson, thank you for the opportunity. As you mentioned, yes, all the feedback was actually sent through to the forum prior to this meeting. But if I can just also acknowledge Mr. Jacobs and his team for joining our road safety management section, who actually deals with the educational part. And, you know, during our operations, Honorable Chair, something that really stood out for us in the sense that, you know, we were attempting these operations and as mentioned, in the absence of, you know, really specific legislation to actually enforce specifically for the concerns of overcrowding, as well as, you know, transporting of an unsafe load. So despite that, you know, we looked at it from an angle of, you know, still trying to educate, but also to enforce and trying to find that balance. So what we found was, yes, that some of the vehicles transporting the farm workers are in a very bad condition. We also included as part of the operations, we've got a mobile testing unit that gets deployed. You know, it can be mobile, so we can move it around in the province. So some of these vehicles were also put on, you know, just to do a provisionary roadworthiness test. And some of them are in a pretty bad condition. So we've executed as far as we could from a law enforcement point of view. But it is clear that, you know, and as shared previously in the first meeting, that it's more than just a law enforcement challenge. And this situation of transportation needs to be looked at from all the various parties. So, but rest assured, Chairperson, we are on board in terms of, you know, we've revisited our planning to try and accommodate, as the previous speaker engaged on the specific times. Our officials are sometimes even getting to the locations 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, so that we can actually stop the vehicles and do these checks, and also do the educational part from the road safety team. So, you know, we've had some challenges for April and May, sorry, for March and April, in terms of, you know, there's always a resistance from the drivers and the passengers when one stops these type of vehicles. But challenges in the sense that, you know, if we want them to offload their passengers, you know, they've got to wait for another vehicle to come and collect them. So that was some of the challenges that the officials dealt with. The latest being, Chairperson, that yesterday we found a public transport vehicle in the Dedurans area that was overloaded with, they only allowed to carry 16 with the driver, but this particular public transport vehicle was carrying 25 passengers. That's just the passengers without the driver. So that was, the driver was arrested for that overload. We do have the particulars of that farm in the Dedurans area. So we also want to look into, you know, into trying to find out where that vehicle was traveling to and from. There was another incident that I think Honorable Moran circulated to our HOD. I think it was shortly after our meeting when we said, you know, as a directorate, we're open to, and we would encourage people to actually communicate these type of incidents. There was a photo that he sent us for one of the vehicles where there was farm workers being transported unsafely. And what we did from a law enforcement side, it was tracked down that Breedevallei municipality did in fact issue a summons to that driver, you know, on that particular day. But further from our side as provincial traffic, I actually got the chief as well as his second in charge to go and track down the owner to try and engage with him to try and find out, you know, what are the reasons for the possible overloading, and why is he, you know, not adhering to even the social distancing on that vehicles. So he also posed a lot of challenges in the sense that, you know, as far as them as owners trying to regulate it from their side, the drivers have their part to play. That sometimes when vehicles leave the farms, they actually pick up other workers from other farms. So it's more than just what we're seeing with the eye in terms of what's being presented in front of us. But we'll do everything from our side, Honorable Chair, to be part of regulating it from a law enforcement perspective. And we look forward to the discussions on revisiting the legislation as well. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Chetty. Ms. Chetty, before you go away, can I just ask, one of the inputs that we've received today from one of the unions, well, more than one referred to law enforcement and stricter law enforcement, but it was my impression that their experience is that quite often municipal traffic police are concentrating on, I almost want to say, urban areas. Would there be perhaps a cooperation or a reach out from your side to try and ask municipalities to join you in a combined effort in terms of fighting this transport and stopping the kind of conduct that you've just highlighted, where 25 people were transported in a 16-seater vehicle?
Thanks, Chairperson, for that question. We actually, you know, whatever operations we do from a provincial side, Chair, it's normally, we normally do engagements with the local authorities to bring them on board, because you want to try and have joint operations so that the impact is greater. I can assure you, Chair, that we've done our bit in terms of the planning to include them. They've given us their commitment that they will attend. But I got from the two regional directors specifically for the Cape Winelands and the West Coast area where we started these operations, as most of the routes, we found more prevalence of these vehicles. And we do want to roll out to the other districts as well. But it was clearly shared with the local authorities, the planning. They at the meeting would tell us that they would participate, but it was only a 30 or a 40% participation from their side, Chairperson. So we're trying to involve them at every level from planning to execution. We will continue from our side to include them, but I think at some stage we need to engage with the local authorities, for them to also acknowledge that the problem is actually starting within the municipal areas before it even comes out onto the provincial roads. So we're not saying that we're not party and parcel to this, but there's a level of commitment that needs to come from their side as well. But we have engaged with them, Honourable Chair.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Chetty.
Thank
you. Can I just ask Mr. Jacobs, after you've heard from our unions, is there anything that you would like to add to your earlier input?
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you for the inputs. I think there's a few areas that I just want to touch on based on the inputs. Then I want to thank Ms. Chetty as well for affirming our partnership that we've started to institute. We certainly look forward to further engagements in this space, but we certainly support the need for a review of the transport regulations. I think a number of speakers have actually spoken to that. That was also raised at the first session, and so while enforcement is the one angle, I think the regulatory review is what we have consistently called for, because I think that for me is probably the biggest missing piece in this space. The call to reinstitute the COVID protocols, that's an absolute no-brainer. We certainly welcome that call, and I'll certainly, after this meeting as well, be putting out a message to all of our agricultural stakeholders to reaffirm the need to ensure adherence to COVID protocols for our workers and our producers. The issue that I think it was Saktu that raised around the subsidy from government, and I think that's may have been touched on previously as well, but there's no doubt that any change to the transport arrangements of agri workers is going to lead to an increase in cost, whether to the workers or to the producers. And I think that's it's certainly not a agricultural mandate, and that's my dilemma, and I cannot speak on behalf of any other department. But I think we need to think practically, Chair and members, as to how one can mitigate the cost implications of changing or transforming the transporting arrangements, because I think if we're able to do that, we may be able to address most of the challenges in relation to the transport of farm workers. The design of vehicles, I think it was COSATU's representative that spoke to that, and and I'm pleased that the standing committee had an opportunity to view one of the farms where there was a redesign of farm vehicles, and I think that's certainly in line with the review of the regulatory framework and the design of vehicles to make sure that there is proper seating as well as allows for appropriate social distancing. So I think, Chairperson, from some of the comments, which we certainly welcome, That's certainly our response as Department of Agriculture at this point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. And I really want to say thank you very much to each and everyone who joined us in this meeting and for all your input and particularly for the measured way in which you've taken part in this. Mr. Strydom, you've now also heard a number of inputs. And before I give over to our members to pose questions, I would just like to ask whether you've got any comment on what you've heard. And then, Honorable Maran, if I could ask, and I don't want to call you out, but during our oversight visit 2 Fridays ago, we visited the farm and you were kind enough to arrange that we could speak to people there on the farm regarding a solution which they have, which seems to be going a long way towards at least ensuring the dignity of those being transported, but secondly also adding to the safety of those, and thirdly, which still renders that truck usable for general farm work. So, Honorable Maran, if I could warn you that I would like you, or give you a heads up, that I would like you to just perhaps come in after Mr. Strydom, just to share your observation or our observations there at the farm regarding alternatives that could be promoted amongst producers. Mr. Strydom, over to you, and then if Honorable Maran would be so kind.
Thank you very much, Chair, and honourable members and members of this meeting. Thank you very much for the inputs. We really take note of it. Although, with due respect, this is what we've been experiencing and what we actually know. And that's why we did that presentation the previous time as well, and also had this follow-up discussions regarding the resolutions of this committee with the Department of Agriculture, and which I think was a very good discussion. I again just want to reiterate the fact that we also would like to get inputs regarding the solutions. And I'm really glad to hear that Honourable Moran and committee members did visit the farm. That was also a suggestion from Agri-Western Cape side that we would also gladly arrange such a visit, because I think there are a lot of good practices out there that we can refer to and perhaps have as a guideline. Just on the COVID protocols, I would just, I hear what Mr. Jacobs and some of the other members also alluded to. I just want us to just make sure that if we ask for the implementation of stricter COVID regulations in terms of transportation, that the same apply for public transport then, because it's a cost, there's a cost implication of that as well. And I'm saying that with the background that you as a chair and the committee knows that Agri-Western Cape really support the safe transport of farm workers, and we're not saying that should be compromised at all. So let's just bear that in mind as well. And I also welcome the suggestions on subsidy, or for a lack of better words, subsidy, but support in arranging these structures on trucks. If we just look at trucks, I think there's really good practices out there of structures with seating arrangements, but it's a very it's very costly, and we welcome any suggestions regarding support in that matter. And then just finally, Chair, on Mr. Jacobs also alluded to the fact that with regard to road safety and the I think it was called raids by Ms. Chetty as well. From Agri-Western Cape side, we really welcome law enforcement at these pickup points as well. I had a lengthy discussion with the West Coast after theirs, and the feedback regarding the vehicles in bad condition and so forth, and we cannot support that. So we welcome it, and because all the vehicles need to undergo the inspection, the yearly inspection to get a license again. Drivers every second year. So yeah, if we can enforce that, I think we've gone far in solving this problem, and it's a great concern. So yeah, we welcome it, and if there's anything that we can further assist with or communicate, please do not hesitate. From Agri Western Cape side, it's a really priority for us to have our farm workers transported safely, and eventually that the agriculture sector can prosper in our province. I thank you for the opportunity.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Strydom. And Honorable Maran, without putting you on the spot, would you be so kind? I'm going to try and see if I can beam some of the photographs onto the screen, if ICT would give me that permission, because Ms. Niekerk did take a number of photographs of some suggestions on what can be done to improve the safe transport and dignified transport of workers. Honorable Maran, over to you.
Thanks, Chairperson, and good afternoon to everyone. Look, Chair, I think one of, and I fully agree with Mr. Daryl Jacobs and Chetty, is that one of our biggest problems is Regulation 247. And it's because of that, Chair, that we have visited some of the farms and to look at a better way to transport farm workers. Regulation 247, Chair, allows basically farmers and also other employers to transport workers in a manner that we find unacceptable. The regulation is saying that for seated passengers, the rails of a vehicle must be at a height of, I think, 300 millimeters. And for those standing, Chair, 900 millimeters. But it does not give us numbers, how much workers can be transported at the back of those vehicles, meaning that the Regulation 247 allow workers to be transported as mass as goods, of which is a very big problem. Regulation 247 also said, Chair, that only vehicles permitted to transport passengers. If farmers is going to make use of those vehicles, they can charge workers a fee. And I don't think that's where we want to go. The current mode of transport, which is trucks, Chair, you cannot charge a worker a fee. What we are saying, Chair, we should look in how we can make those modes of transport acceptable for those workers. And we have visited basically some of the farms and to see how some of the farmers transporting those workers. What we have seen in some of those farms basically is where farmers basically have developed a type of a canopy, a hard top, and also a soft top. The seats are mounted onto the canopy. There is seats for everyone. They are in a process, Chair, to see whether they can also fit seat belts to those seats, because what we've experienced, Chair, is that when there's accidents, some of the causes of death is when workers fell off the truck, hitting the tar road, hitting a pole next to the road, or hitting a stone, and that basically causes the death of workers, workers falling from the truck. What we have also experienced, Chair, is the number of workers that's been transported on those trucks. And if you, for instance, look at the accidents that have happened over the last couple of years, you would have seen, Chair, that some of those trucks have like 100, more than 100 workers on those particular trucks, and which causes basically, Chair, big problems and many times the causes of death, Chair. So, Chair, yeah, that's basically why we have see the need to go and visit these farms and to see whether we can better the transport mode for those workers. I fully agree, Chair, with the speaker, the speaker of SATU. And we have spoken about this in a previous meeting to see whether the government can subsidize, and if possible, whether we can move from trucks to buses, Chair, because the transportation of farm workers, Chair, in last year at the beginning of COVID, being identified as essential services, the agricultural sector, Chair, it cannot be the responsibility of farmers only Chair, to cover the cost. Chair, and government have to come to the table and see whether they can assist to make it easier for the employer side to transport workers in a better way. Chair, I've also now note, Chair, that especially female workers, Chair, in during that particular period where they have their periods, Chair, is also a problem. And I think the speaker was referring to those open trucks, Chair, when it's raining and so forth. I've also learned a new thing now, Chair. Some of the issues that, and basically all the issues basically that the unions have spoken about is issues that we have touched on in our previous meeting, the issue of overcrowding. Chair, last year at the beginning, you have seen basically at the pickup points, there's sanitizing, there's masks on those trucks, there's social distancing. And as we have moving forward, you have seen some of those old habits have returned, where you've seen this overcrowding, no sanitizing at the pickup spots, but no mask even, it has disappeared. So the issues that's basically touched on, Chair, it's the issues that they have spoken on. I thought, Chair, I'm happy that I hope that you are happy with the first part in terms of the visit that we have in the trucks that we have looked at, and in the absence of buses, Chair, what we think or what farmers think how they should improve the transportation, their vehicles, to make it better for workers to be transported. I thought, Chair, that from the Department of Agriculture side, or the Department of, not the Department, Agri-Western Cape, Chair, just to explain the proposal that they have made in the first meeting to us, in terms of the 50%, and whether it's possible for that to be included in the lockdown regulations, because it will be the faster way to get it into to be regulated by law enforcement agencies, is to get it into the regulations. The issue of, for instance, 50% of the truckload capacity, and if you basically implement that, you will find basically there will be social distancing on those particular trucks. I thought that they would have explained this to the employer side, which were absent in the first meeting, and to see whether they support that particular proposal, Chair. For now, Chair, let me stop there.
Thank you, Honourable Maran. Honourable members, it's now open to you, or over to you. It's open for questions, perhaps to any of those that have presented to us today. I do see Mr. Bester's hand that has gone up. Mr. Bester, we are now moving on to the agenda point where the members are actually given an opportunity to ask questions. But if you would like to add anything at this stage, please do so, or please come in.
Chair, thank you so much, Chairperson. Mine is just too quickly that Comrade De Bruin, the secretary, is busy at the CEC and he had to leave us, so I'm just on his behalf apologizing. And then I want to make just one small statement, Chair, if I'm allowed. Take 30 seconds. I've seen the photos that Comrade, the Honourable Maran has put on, showing us. Myself do work in the farm environment as COSATU. I'm the provincial organizer and I work every month. I go to a farm town where I watch these farmers. The photos that you've seen today is the Mercedeses and the Ferraris of trucks that get used. I've been to places where people have to technically tie bags with a piece of rope to the truck so it doesn't blow off. There's no covers. There's just standing place. And you will remember the death, the part where these people died near to a clubmates. You touched on that. They use a load bay truck with a tractor to transport people. People get on and they stand, and this tractor then pulls this. That's how they transport the people. And I'm just wanting us to look at it. The taxis is a big issue, but taxis are pull off the road every morning. You can go. The city is somewhere, or the provincial traffic is somewhere busy pulling trackers, but we don't see these on a Saturday morning. I've yet to see a traffic vehicle on a Saturday morning at one of the farm towns that I go to, Chairperson, where they actually stop trucks and see if it's roadworthy or even worthy to carry people. And I've some of these trucks don't even have public driver permit on the windows. I walk through and I see these things. So let us just get more feet on the ground and see on a Saturday morning. Go to small towns where drivers bring in farm workers. Just go to that drop-off spaces and see how that trucks and buses look. Some of them it's like murder weapons, Chair. So I thought maybe I just wanted to raise that. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Mr. Bester, and I recognize the hands of Honourable Maseko and then Honourable Murray.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chair, I just want to also thank all the contributors to this issue that really it needs attention as soon as possible, of which we have to prioritize it. But I want to find out from the organized workers, the unions, even COSATU, if they can respond. I mean, this is one of the issues that I tend to believe that it should have been prioritized a long time ago. What were the responses, maybe, if it was ever tabled in your bargaining council, the transport? Because I know other sectors that are using the transport, they also put in their bargaining councils, or if they do the yearly negotiations with their employers. Was there a time that has happened, and what were the responses? Or do you think that maybe in future it can be a good thing that you put it in there in your bargaining council? And I'm saying this because there is cost implications, whether being from the employee or the employer, of which you as a representatives, when you do negotiations within the organized unions, you will be able to get the gist of how can how can we go about in addressing this. So I would love to hear from them if they have attended that from the bargaining council side of the matter. Thanks, Chair. I think that's the only thing that I can say for now. I can ask for now.
Thank you. Then over to Honourable Murray.
Thank you so much, Speaker. I've listened very attentively to all the speakers, and very valid points they are making. I'm in total agreement. What I'm not in agreement with was nobody has got a solution, a real solution, because nobody touched on how can we resolve this issue except to say there must be more cost to the farmers. Farmers must have a better truck, and it must be fitted this way, and there must be bigger fines. And whatever cost the farmer is going to incur, he will recover by increasing the price of food. And the poor people, the farm workers themselves, will have to pay much more for their food in the shops, because farming is a business. It's not a social welfare program. It's a business. Your input cost will be... Chairman, I have Honourable Maseko must go and laugh somewhere else. Speaker, I think that we must say, if it is part of the wage structure of that farmers must pay their workers, the danger is farming can move towards capital intensive instead of labor intensive. I spoke to farmers too, and they said they can buy tractors and other equipment that can do the work of 20 or 30 farm workers. Do we really want to go there? Secondly, we didn't touch on fiscal policy. What does the state spend their money on that cannot be diverted to subsidize transport on farmers if they put a high premium on food security? What about tax rebates to farmers? Can't we say, listen here, the farmer, you could have a Mercedes-Benz truck to transport workers in a safe and respectable manner, but don't worry, so much percent of that cost incurred is a tax rebate and deductible. Then the farmer would gladly do it. The third point is, have we ever discussed farm villages? Something I proposed when I was still in charge of local government, that we should, in our town planning, that we should see where there are the biggest demand for farm labor and erect farm villages closer to the farms to make it easier for them to get to work. Now, it still comes down to finding a solution. We all know the problem. We have spent billions on arms and trucks to ferry soldiers from point A to B in the best, most comfortable trucks that's standing in army bases unused for years now. Have they ever thought of saying these trucks, which we thought we're going to have a war here and we spend the billions on, there's no war. We help other countries north of Africa, of South Africa, to fight their wars. We are not facing wars, but our trucks are standing there idle. Has anybody thought of saying and engaging with national government? And COSATU is a powerful lobbying group. Don't underestimate the power of unions. They can tell the government, how many of your trucks can you make available so that it can be used to transport farm workers? There is no war here. So what are all your trucks doing there that you're supposed to use to ferry army personnel from A to point B? These are the issues I want to put on the table. And I would like to hear what COSATU and the other unions have to say about it. Because they're powerful, they're even more powerful than political parties, even though we don't want to admit it. COSATU and the other unions, they have a strong voice. And I would like them to tell me, what do they think? Shouldn't there be a greater pressure on national government in terms of their tax policies and in terms of their fiscal policies? I thank you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Marais. The next two speakers will be Honourable Nkondlo and then Honourable Maran. Can I just remind members, we are currently with our question and answer session. So if you could be specific and if you could perhaps be, indicating to me which of our presenters you would like to respond, I'll appreciate that. We will have a point later on the agenda, resolutions, stroke actions. So I think much of what Honourable Marais said we should keep in mind when it comes to the resolutions. Thank you, Honourable Nkondlo, and then Honourable Maran.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. My question, I think, would be to Ms. Chetty. I just want, I think, listening to what she says about the gap between the province one would be interested to understand at this point delay conversations around alignment and integration, because I'm listening, I think, to what she was raising about, I think, some of the problems that get to them as the province, which in the main are from the municipality. And obviously, I assume that they do have some engagement with the municipalities are finding themselves in either of the sphere, and how to unlock the is really what would have stopped them to have that particular conversation. And now that I think she is raising, are there any plans, any things that have been done or to be done in closing that particular gap in this regard, so that I think the concerns that are being raised, that she raised, are actually improved upon. Secondly, Chair, I just want to understand again from the transport that what has been their role in terms of safety education, particularly of both the as much as theirs would be and enforce, but in terms of improving on the ability, to understand the importance of safety as an issue within the farming community, the transport safety in particular. I'm just wanting to understand whether there has been those engagement, including, I think perhaps maybe the unions can also respond to this question about transport safety education within the farm environment. Because whilst I take the issue of the costs, I would believe that a labor cost is inherent in any enterprise, and therefore should be built in it together with the related ancillary costs that will come, with employing people so that you can produce whatever are your products or the service that you offer. And actually that takes me, Chair, to the last point that I think I remember. I think if the Department of Agriculture is here, I remember, I think in the initial conversations we had with them on the impact of COVID in the agriculture sector. Perhaps this is a question that maybe can be answered if there's any view from agriculture, or perhaps we can consider later on if indeed what is the current cost of transport to the food security business or to the agricultural enterprise, whether one looks at it in an individual enterprise, aggregate that, as the total figure, in terms of the cost of food production. Because I believe, it's important that we consider empirical, to justify if indeed, this looking at this current that cost is being carried by the families who are very poor, that actually have to bury their members, and also have to take care of all the burial costs. And also it's also a cost to the company, because if they have to now, lose an employer and get into, so there are all those particular costs. It can't be that only the farmers now will have added cost, which that cost. I think let's try and get some data in that regard. And therefore, Chair, I'm asking from the department, is there a study of that nature? Or if not, would there be something to be considered, especially in light of this particular conversation that indeed will bring upon some cost implications, in trying to resolve the problem? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Kontlu, and then Honourable Maran.
Thanks, Chair. Look, Chair, when we speak about the transportation of farm workers, we only refer to Regulation 247. Now, remember in the last meeting that we had, in the presentation by the traffic chief from Stellenbosch, he brought our attention to Section 13, the Sectoral Determination 13. And the Sectoral Determination 13 speaks about the transportation of farm workers in a human way, Chair. And I think we should also look at that particular issue and the enforcement by law enforcement to make sure that that the transportation of farm workers are within the Sectoral Determination 13. It speaks, Chair, for instance, about the truck drivers should have a list of names of the workers that they are transporting. So whenever a law enforcement official pull off a truck, that particular driver should be in possession of a list with all those who are at the back of that truck. And it speaks to a number, Chair, also of other issues, the vehicle, basically, Chair, that should be roadworthy, and a number of other things. now, Paul is raising the issue and was saying that the farms that we have visited and those trucks are the Rolls Royces, the Ferraris, and so forth, which is true. But the reason that we went there is to say for ourselves there should be a standard, and this is what we want for all farm workers. We are very aware of the unworthy transportation. You're on a Saturday, some even on a Sunday, and the absence of the law enforcement. But it's those vehicles that we want to get off the road, because we are saying now this is what we want. This is how your truck should be fitted to transport workers in a safe manner. Chair, in the absence of buses, Chair, and Regulation 247 that makes it basically impossible, Chair, for workers to be transported in buses, because it then said workers can be charged a fee. Chair, I just wanted to check with Michetti, and I'm looking at the meeting that we had on the 10th and the committee resolutions. And page 2, Chair, no response to date. And it seems there was an engagement with the National Department, or there was communications to them, and it seems there was no response, because it speaks to Regulation 247 and it speaks to the 50% of workers to be transported. Also, Chair, I've listened to Mr. Daryl Jacobs. We have spoken about the rural safety plan, and I would like to have a copy of that particular plan. I can remember in 2019, the Provincial Department of Safety via Agriculture dispatched 5 million rand to all the district municipalities. It was 1 million rand to each municipality, Chair, and basically what it entails and how those particular safety plans read, Chair. And lastly, Chair, I'm not sure, because one of our resolutions was basically the proposal by Agri Western Cape that there should be an engagement with the Minister of COCTA to see whether those proposals can be captured within the lockdown regulations. It speaks to that only 50% of the total capacity on trucks that should be allowed, and I have said, Chair, that it will also create a situation where there is social distancing. I just wanted to check, Chair, whether there was this engagement with the Minister of COCTA of that particular department. Thanks.
Good, thank you. It seems to me, apart from Honourable Maran, who has directed questions specifically to Mr. Jacobs, the other questions were directed in general to some of the participants. And if I could ask then that if there are any of our participants that would like to respond to that, perhaps Mr. Jacobs, you being named specifically by Honourable Maran, perhaps if you would like to respond regarding engagement. And then I recognize the hands of Satwu, and then and I believe Satwu is Mr. Bester, and then Mr. Strydom.
Chair?
Yes?
There was a question directed to Michetti regarding Regulation 247. I've seen in the document in front of me, there was no response to date. If you look at the response, seems they've tried to make communication with the National Minister of Transport or the National Transport Department, but to date there was no response. Whether indeed there was a letter or a phone call whatsoever sent to that department, and there was no response. I just want to.
Okay, no, thank you, and my apologies to Mr. Willemse. I just renamed you to Bester. Mr. Willemse, if you would like to go first.
Thank you, Chairperson. In terms of bargaining councils in agriculture, unfortunately, I'm not aware of a current bargaining council that deals with farm or the agriculture sector. Although how we deal with conditions of employment in the farms where we are organized is that we will literally sit with the farm or the employer and then raise certain things or unhappiness regarding transport, and then you negotiate. And obviously, we have a challenge. It's a big factor that in order to transform or change a truck into its cost, and we are mindful of that. Like with any negotiations, even if how you do salaries, you need to be mindful that if you ask too much, there will be consequences. And at this point in time, there is big success. All depends on the how big the farm is and what the attitude of the farmer is or the group of farms is. But you are also experiencing where some farmers are just bluntly, they don't want to make an effort by changing the smaller things. You see, and I'm aware that we should be mindful, and that's why we are saying, let's first do the small things that can be implemented, and that give us a time to get to those items where cost is involved. Because you can see farmers that putting a big effort when they need to buy machinery, and obviously that they easily say no, that machine is going to work for me, but at the end of the day that machine must be operated by someone who most of the time who has been transported to work. And that is we are saying, if we can have a first change, let's have an attitude change, and then we can work together to get to improvement of these transport conditions. And I'm in 100% with the other comrade that says we need to deal with the regulation, because if we don't start there, but that's like Mr. Jacobs also said, is that deal with the easier one, is that let's all put an effort in. I will speak to my leadership also, so that we can also put pressure on the Minister of Kokta to see if we can get the lockdown regulations, in particular on farm transport, because that will give us something that we can enforce much better instead of negotiating. And then in the long term, we can then get to a better negotiating platform. Unfortunately, unfortunately, there are no bargaining councils for SACTU. Our vision is that we should get to in the very near future. We are still growing in the agriculture sector, but we will obviously collaborate with other affiliate unions so that we can get a bargaining council, because that will help us, although we will still sit with the cost issue. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Willemse. Before I give over to Mr. Strydom, Mr. Willemse, thank you very much. It seems to me then, and I would just like you to confirm, as if some of your members, or in the case that some of your members bring under your attention that, say, for example, they are being transported by a driver that is driving recklessly, etc., that you would then be willing to engage with the owner of the truck or the employer of that driver to then bring it under his or her attention. You say that, you know, and this is one of the things that I would think you refer to when you talk about the, in my words, low-hanging fruit, the easy ones, the ones that can really make an enormous difference without huge cost implications. Would you be willing as a union to engage with employers at that level?
Yes, certainly, Chair. I can just mention an example. About a month ago, in the Wellington area, one of our members got badly injured because of a driver that was driving recklessly. And obviously, I didn't like the excuse, but at the end of the day, there was evidence that he was pressurized to go and drop the workers very quickly, because he needs to come back, because he must still get to the airport, to the market, to drop some stuff in Cape Town. So there was a proper investigation. Now we all said is that, yes, you need to be in Cape Town, but you must first make sure that you must transport the people safe. And that is how we engage. And that's where we have members. You can easily engage with with the employer, and most of the time, many of the employers have labor consultants, so they know the standards that should be there. So we are doing it already, and that is why I'm saying it's all about the attitude. So that we can, where there's easy things that we can do without having big costs. That is what we first should start to do. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Willemse, and thank you. I think you've just reiterated the important role that you can play as a union. Mr. Strydom, over to you.
Chair, thank you. Yeah, just on Honourable Moran's question regarding the 50% that we suggested, I would just like to just stand still on it and just give us a short explanation what we meant by it, and we also discussed it with the Department of Agriculture on the committee's resolutions, and we also formulated in a letter dated 20 April that was forwarded to the committee for today as well. We are also very concerned because, like Honourable Moran is referring to Regulation 247, the question of overloading. I must state that there's no way that, for example, a 5-ton truck can load 5 tons of humans. It's just impossible. Either you're going to have to sit or lay on top of each other. So within the current regulation, actually, and it's quite disturbing, is that you cannot overload because there can only be so many people on a truck. But it seems to be overloaded, and I agree with that in terms of the amount of people on it. So, but there are no regulations. So we, as organized agriculture, just suggested that should there not be a structure that we've seen in these photos and what is referred to the Ferraris and the Mercedeses in the sector, is that if there's no such structure and it's only the loading section of a truck, this should be an indication of how many people. If on a 5-ton truck, for example, if you divide the 5 tons by 68, which is also stated in the regulations, the weight of a person or the accepted weight, then you can get to an amount of people. And we've run that, Honourable Moran, through our Hort Forum as well in the food industry. So that was just to determine the number of people. If one go and calculate that truck that was shown, for example, in the photo, if you're going to go and count the number of people that will be seated in that truck, it automatically comes close to the 50% of the weight of that, the license carrying capacity of that vehicle divided by 68. So it's actually a good indication or suggestion that one should look at just to be able to determine the numbers. If, and I want to reiterate that, if there's no structure on it, if there's a structure on a truck, it will by itself sort out the, let's call it the overload issue in terms of humans being transported on it. So that's why we referred to that 50%. And that was just the indication to calculate the number of people if there's no structure. But like I said, the structure actually determines that by itself, and the calculations are close to 50% then of that carrying capacity as well. So I hope I do answer Honourable Moran's question on that, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and I also recognise Honourable Moran's hand.
No, Chair, I thought you will allow everyone to respond to the questions that we have asked first, and afterwards I can, if he wants to give me another bite. Or, yeah.
Speaker, sorry, if you will allow me.
Yes, can I just, Honourable Marie, there's been a request from Honourable Moran that I just make doubly sure that there's nobody else that would like to respond to the questions that were asked of organised labour and some of the other representatives. I do not see any hands. So, yes, Ms. Chetty, Thank you. And then Honorable Moran and then Honorable Murray.
I just wanted to say I missed the part of the SAT2 tower because I was cut out. I didn't have a signal here. So I just hope that this will be, I wanted to hear what SAT2 had to say. I didn't hear it because I was offline, sir. I just hope that what they said would be made available to members.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Murray. And this meeting is being recorded as well. Ms. Chetty?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. If I can just respond to the two that I noted down was from Honorable Nkondlo regarding, what have we done to encourage or have we elevated the challenge of the local authorities, in terms of the participatory level at these operations. Chair, as far as it goes, we will continue to engage with them. And we are submitting monthly reports to our HOD in terms of the successes of these operations, as well as the outcomes in terms of participation. So it's not just local authority that's joining us; it's also the SAPS, our SAPS counterparts, that have also been part of the operations, and Department of Agriculture as well as Road Safety. Those are role players. So these challenges of the municipality, not participating is, reasons that they provided in terms of, they don't have enough resources. The hours that the operations are scheduled are sometimes outside of their operational hours. So it's fine tuning that needs to happen in terms of the planning. But we hope, Honorable Chair, that, it has been the start of these dedicated operations. We've only been busy with these dedicated operations now for the last 2 months, in respect of the first meeting that was held in February. So I'm hoping and I'm quite positive that in the months to come, that all parties will actually start playing a more active role in these operations. And then to Honorable Moran's concern regarding the legislation, I only know of a press release that was done on the 15th of March, that was from Dr. Ivan Meyer from Agriculture side, and where he included our Minister, Mr. Madikizela at the time, with regards to the collaboration in terms of, the commitments given in the resolutions to actually look at ways to communicate to national regarding the amendment of the legislation. So I know that, the attempt has been done, but we haven't gotten a response from national side as yet. In terms of, do they even have a body looking at this? Because, at the previous road traffic management meetings, when we have our national LEDCOM meetings, transporting of farm workers is not just a Western Cape problem. It's quite prevalent in other provinces. So, we would have thought that national would take it seriously as well, in terms of, it's been coming on for years that we finally get a position on that, but we did not, regrettably, we did not get a response. But it has been elevated through the RTMC as well, in terms of the concerns. Chair, I trust that that answers the question. Thank you.
Chairperson, are you around in the meeting?
Sorry again, I thought I was unmuted. Thank you very much, Ms. Chetty. And with that, over to you, Mr. Jacobs. I recognized your hand.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And there were a few questions that were actually posed. Member Murray asked a question about consideration of agri-villages. I know that there are at least one pilot that I know of. One that's out in Kraaifontein at the Old Nova Rehabilitation Center. And that's so there's the concept around agri-village as part of the plans for the Nova has been driven by Department of Human Settlements, and we are part of that team. And I think it would be interesting to see how that particular pilot evolves. I know Garden Route District that also in one of the towns there, and there was the proposal for a project, but I don't know how far that actually got, but that's certainly has been on the agenda. Member Nkondlo, I couldn't pick up, I was losing sound consistently, but the thrust of what I understood the question to be is, has there been a study of the cost of transport on the agri sector and impact on food security, specifically with regards to agri workers? And please correct me if I'm wrong, but there's not been a study to that extent. What we have embarked on is the agri worker household census, but it's not one of the questions in that census in terms of the cost of transport. And so that's certainly not been undertaken, and I agree evidence is an important point in terms of deciding and defining how we move forward. We do have the impact of COVID-19 on the agri sector. That's we certainly have got that study, which can be shared at another stage, but we don't have one on the cost of transport on the agricultural sector. In terms of Member Maran's question on engagement with COCTA, and let me say that what the Department of Agriculture developed was a protocol which was also shared nationally. That's the protocol developed for stakeholders in terms of carrying capacity and the transport of passengers by LDV or trucks. That was shared in the previous meeting as part of the presentation. It has not been embodied in a regulation at all, and I think that Mr. Stradom also spoke to that particular point. But it has been shared nationally with both Department of Agriculture nationally as well as Department of Cooperative Governance. And then just a final point, Member Moran asked about the rural safety plans. Let me also say that Department of Community Safety did not send funding via Department of Agriculture. They sent it directly through to the district municipalities for the rural safety plans. We, as agriculture, obviously gave input into those plans, and I do not think there'd be any problem at all for those rural safety plans to be made available to the members who may be interested. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Jacobs, for your response. Can I just ask, before I give over to Honourable Moran as well, those of you that are intimately involved in the agriculture sphere, my impression is that, you know, every employer, and particularly in agriculture, has to adhere to numerous pieces of legislation. I think there have been reports citing the number of pieces of legislation that farmers need to conform with. And one of those, I presume, would be health and safety regulations. And I presume also that much of that might concentrate on, you know, the day-to-day activities on the farm, you know, how you store poison, how you cover moving machines, etc., so that people's hands and clothing don't get entangled into this. But my question is then also, what is your impression? To what extent would discussions regarding health and safety on farms also include the travel to and from the farm? Perhaps that is something which may have been neglected. I don't know. I would very much like the role players within agriculture to just perhaps assist me in that regard, because it could lead to one of our resolutions later on. Honourable Moran.
Thanks. I just want to
check whether some of the information that's been sent to us as members, whether it has been sent also to the unions. The reason I'm asking, I've listened carefully to what Mr. Willemse of SACTU have said, basically, and he was saying that we know that Regulation 247, it's going to take some time, but there is these smaller things that can be done, and if there's a need for their union to assist in making sure that the message gets out to the COCTA minister, they are willing to assist. Whether some of the information has been made available to them, specifically the presentation of Agri-Western Cape, that speaks to the 50% and how possible we can get it in the lockdown regulations. But not only SACTU, and I think COSATU and other unions will be in a position to support in making sure, or to support and engage some of the national leaders who are closer to the national minister and see whether we can get it into the lockdown regulations. Because remember, in our first meeting, and specifically Mr. Africa have said basically we can use the lockdown regulations to our advantage, because if it's there, it can be enforced by law enforcement officials. So I just want to check whether they have received some of this information. Also, when we chat here, I just want to check whether, and they have spoken basically of some of the operations that they had, roadblocks and so on, and what they have experienced or come across. I haven't seen that, but moving forward from here, because the safe transport of workers is all of our business, the unions, the committee, all of us. Whether she will involve us or send us in invite when we're going to have a roadblock specifically targeting the transportation of workers, farm workers, inviting us as a committee, inviting unions to see how that particular action is taking place. Whether they can send us such an invite as we are moving forward. Thanks.
Daar is 'n doodse stilte nou.
Chair, you are mute.
Sorry, thank you. It's not my best day in terms of managing my own microphone. Can we give over to Honourable Marais and then to Mr. Willemse to respond to some of the questions?
Ja, ek sien is baie Afrikaans sprekende, so ek gaan 'n bietjie Afrikaans praat. Ek wil eintlik 'n bietjie verskil met meneer Honourable Marang. Ek glo nie in regulasies nie. Regulasies gee te veel mag aan een minister wat nie terugrapporteer aan parlement nie. Hy omseil parlement, maak so I want to say that we must rather
point of order, please.
That we can have. I thought that these meetings are no more points of order allowed.
No, Chair, sorry, Mr. Honourable Marais, points of order are allowed. I think in terms of guidance from the speaker, if possible, the request was that we should speak in a language understood by all, a common language. If you want to proceed in Afrikaans, and if you will agree to me trying to translate, we can proceed in that way as well. But if you could see your way open to switch, not all members, although the majority may be Afrikaans speaking, not all the members on this meeting have got Afrikaans as their mother tongue. So, Honourable Marais, will you please proceed?
Speaker, now there's a lot of people listening to this. You are assuming, as Maseko, that everybody's mother tongue is English and that we all understand English, and I disagree. But because to keep order in this meeting, I'll switch over to English. But let it be noted, I object. The thing that I've clearly been put off my what I was going to say now, so I will just drop what I was going to say because my mind is totally switched off by that interjection. But I will from now on continuously have points of order if that is what the DA member wants.
Now, Honourable Murray, surely we want order in our meetings. Can I just say, and we want everybody to be able to take part on an even footing. Honourable Murray, if I could remind you, you were actually stating your case that you are not in favour of regulations because you felt that the regulations gave too much power to the ministers and that they do not have to account for decisions under regulations.
Thank you for putting
Would that
me
help
back
you
on track.
to put you back on track? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Speaker, Minister. I mean, I'm completely flabbergasted now. Regulations is the law give a minister so much power, like we see with COVID. They change it every week to something else. If you are going to regulate the situation of transport for farm workers to one minister making regulations, it will be a complete mess like the COVID regulations are now. We should press for a law negotiated through the unions and other bodies that is a permanent law where there's political oversight by Parliament, not regulations.
Thank you, Honourable Murray. I recognise Mr. Willems's hand.
Thanks, Chairperson. I'm glad you raised the points, and we normally remember it as audits because many of these farms are supposed to do various audits right through the year. Now, I previously talked about attitude. When they are supposed to do these audits, they do every effort to make sure they meet the conditions that they are supposed to meet. Many of the farms that deal with exports, they are supposed to that the vineyards must be in a certain conditions, there must be toilets, the place must be clean, what. So they do all the effort when it comes to these audits, and that's why, yes, Mr. Murray, it's not good always to have regulations, but until we get to this country where everyone will deal with respect of the employees, we unfortunately need to go with regulations at this point in time. And why we opted for regulations, because we are currently under COVID conditions, and regulations are the better one to deal. And obviously for law enforcement to enforce, for now I would support that. We rather go because that would be the easier one at this point in time. Yes, so Chairperson, yes, I'm glad you raised the point of health and safety and all these things. And the attitude that we are seeing when it comes to these audits, the farmers are doing everything to make sure that they comply, because they can lose many money if they don't comply. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Willemse. I did see that Mr. Witboy's microphone was also unmuted. Mr. Witboy, would you like to come in here? No, silence. And it seems to me we've not been able to get Mr. Linnertz. Mr. Linnertz, I don't know if you've been able to, with the help of ICT, join us and unmute your microphone. I do hope that you've been able to follow the meeting this far.
Thank you, Chair. Unfortunately, I've missed out a lot on this meeting, so I don't want to add anything. I'm just listening. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, and thank you for staying on, and apologies for the technical challenges. Mr. Jacobs, I recognize your hand.
Chair, thank you. I just wanted to respond to your question as to whether transport of farm workers is part of the health and safety studies or assessment that is undertaken. I've been informed that it is. Department of Employment and Labour obviously undertakes those inspections, and the transport of farm workers is certainly part of the broader mandate. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Mr. Bester, I recognize your hand.
Chairperson, thank you. I know I'm not part of the delegation or the members in the House, and forgive me if I'm out of order, but I just think I need to just make the following point. Yanni Strydom can confirm that during the lockdown, we as COSATU and them had numerous discussions and pressures towards government regarding at the time the wine farm workers on the wine farms that was really suffering due to COVID, the way that they worked, and then the full closure of the wine industry. And it's through the pressure of us as COSATU and with assistance from Yanni from Agri Cape, West Cape, that indeed the wine farms are now open and selling and actually exporting. And I wanted to go as well, I said to what the other members are saying, we need to discuss and need to go to a meaningful consultation with the employers. Because there's one thing that I raised from this chairperson, which is a little bit concerning to me, although it plays a huge role. Every speaker that spoke talks about the financial side of issues and not about the lives of the people. To say it's going to cost a lot of money to do this and it's costing, and Mr. Honorable Marais said about it's a business and money plays a role, but the lives of the people are more important than any rand and cents that we can have. Those are the people that makes the farm tick over. We can look at the nice front facade of the farm, big farm, this name, that name, but it's the gears in the farm that makes the farm tick over. These are the workers. And we can't put a life or a monetary value on a life, chairperson, to say it's going to cost us much more to transport, to be safe, you know, and I like the way that Mr. Willemse and also some of the other speakers talked about women on farms and the way that they are treated when trucks are driving. I think if we can move away from that and meaningful consult on how to safely transport people, and people being the asset. The farm is just the means to the way. The person is the asset on that farm, chairperson. And we should go out to make sure that the assets are covered, that the assets are protected, and the assets are what they are supposed to do and do what they're supposed to do. I mean, we can say that they must drive on the truck, can be called, and they give 100% of their work power or 50%. Each and every one of them wants to work for 100%. And I think we should move away from the money side of things. Look at the asset, which is the farm workers, and give them the best so that they can be the asset to make that farm more productive at the end of the day. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that input, Mr. Bester. Can I give over to Honourable Maseko and then again Honourable Marais? And if honourable members would just excuse me for a minute, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I agree with you, Mr. Bester. I think today, not talking about the impact of all this transport is a continuation from the past meeting that we addressed the issue of how urgent is this, because we are talking about the lives of people. And what is important, I think, from the standing committee point is to have the solutions as soon as possible. We talked about that in the past meeting that the most important thing is how do we engage with the stakeholders, the users, which is why the unions are around to say how are we going to go about in addressing this issue as soon as possible. Now, another thing of the women that goes into the trucks while is their time of the month, it's a little bit concern of how are we going to address it. And I would love to hear again from the unions. And I'm asking this always turning back to the union because you are the ones who are on the ground with those workers. You know their struggles of going to work while they have challenges. Now, I'm going to ask, if you have a female worker that is getting into the bus up there, the time of the month, if you've got a pilot is a female going up there in a plane, what do you identify that is important for the women as the farm workers to go up there in the mode of transport that will be available, that will be decent, that will be safe for the female farm workers? How do you, as you navigate between the good relationship you have with the employers, which is the farm owners and the farm workers, how do you navigate to accommodate also the women that are working in the farms? Because it's just not there. I mean, you have another thing of your maternity leave. Some of the farm workers, they go back after your 3 months. It's not because they want to go after 3 months, it's the matter of their leaving their income. They go back with their income, we find that the healing hasn't totally happened. And if they have to climb on those stairs to go to the truck, it will be a challenge. But that is what you have as a unit, to have a conversation with those women and say, what will be accommodated? Because I mean, they are workers, they are contributing to the farmers also, but they need to be the the guidance of how do you go about to have something that is usable for them, something that will be okay for those women to be able to go to their work without feeling that they are being excluded in the reality of their struggles as women. Thank you very much, if the chair is back.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Honorable Maseko. Honorable Marais.
Thank you, Chairman. I think that the previous speaker got it all wrong, Mr. Bester. Did you hear me say that lives don't matter, or that is less important than money? I'm a realist, not a propagandist. If lives is of course important, I'm trying to find out, Mr. Chair, how to resolve the loss of life. At the same time, that makes it so economically viable that it's possible. Lives matter, of course, but even the ANC and national government says they don't have money for police in gang-infested areas. Nobody says that they think lives doesn't matter. They just don't have the money to give us more policemen in the Western Cape. So it's a wrong assumption to make that because I say, let's address the implications. I think life is not very important. I do think that he should withdraw that statement if he intended saying that I think lives of farm workers are not important because I mentioned the resultant cost factor.
There's nothing to withdraw.
No, thank you. Thank you. No interjections, please. Can I give over to, is it Mr. Willemse again? I recognize your hand, sir.
Thanks, Chairperson. I just want to respond to the question regarding the females at that time of the month. When we did this drive to speak to our members working on farms, this was some of the suggestions that come from the ladies to say that because there should be like an indication of how many at a certain point in time are having their periods, is then to say, because if the farmer can then make use of a smaller type of transport, because you will have fewer ladies having their menstruation at that particular time. That was some of the suggestions. When we reflect on it, we were quite clear that it is something maybe that can be implemented, but it has its own challenges. Next week, I will be meeting with my first farm, where we will be putting this and have a negotiation on it, and to check what will be the farmer or the employer response is, because it's not easy to deal with these things, but we want to have a discussion on it. We must say that some good thing that farmers did already. There's a lot of improvement in terms of crashes on some of the farms, where our females that came back from maternity, where they can bring their kids with them, and there will be a crash facility for them to visit during the day, or well, if the kids are a bit bigger, they can spend there the entire day and they will be traveling back. That is why it's important that we should deal with farm worker transport, because you're now not only sitting with the worker, you're also sitting with the child that can be transported because of the crash facility at certain farms. Thanks, Chair.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Willemse, for that one. Honourable members, we have got about 40 minutes left of this meeting, and I would very much like us to also try and formulate some resolutions that will really make a difference and that would allow us to go forward. And then you may have seen that there are quite a number of what I would call administration documents that need to be approved by this committee. But I wouldn't like to stifle this engagement. I want to congratulate everybody that has taken part in the meeting today. I've been lacking some of this lively interaction and this dynamic engagement that we've seen here today. So, and I think, you know, a game is determined not only by the rules, but also by the players. So I really want to thank each and everyone that have taken part this far for the way in which we could have engaged. And I think it's been enlightening for many of us to hear the different views. Are there any further input? I presume, Mr. Willemse, that your hand is still raised from your last input. So I'm going to lower it. Please put it up again if you're not finished. So, honourable members, at this stage, before we say thank you to all our participants, are there any last questions that you would like to pose? Please indicate by raise of hands.
Chair.
I heard the voice of Honourable Maran. I don't see any other hands. And then Mr. Witbooi, thank you. I'm glad you are on with us still. Honourable Maran, would you like to give Mr. Witbooi an opportunity to speak and then perhaps help us by trying to conclude the discussions? Would
No
you be
problem.
happy? Happy for Mr. Witbooi. Mr. Witbooi, please, we're all ears, and you will then have the last word from our guest's side.
Thank you. I will be very short. I just want to inform you that I will send the farm worker charter via email, and I will also send it to you, MP Almarang, on WhatsApp. It would help a lot with a lot of questions, and I think it will help with the resolutions also. So I will forward the farm worker charter.
Thank you, Mr. Witbooi. You actually responded even before I could ask you for that, because I must admit that I was not aware of the contents of that, and I really appreciate having insight into that document. Thank you very much. As you know, I'm new to this portfolio, so that we learn from people like yourselves. Then I also would like to see, well, the next hand is that of Honourable Maran then.
Yeah, Chair. Look, Chair, I've asked Chair whether some of the documents that's been sent to us for this meeting, whether it has been sent also, or some of the information sent to some of the unions. And I was specifically referred to the presentation by Agri-Western Cape and the Department of Agriculture, which basically proposed that that only 50% of the capacity load or a certain number of workers should be allowed on certain trucks in terms of their capacity. Chair, because what I've said, Chair, what I've picked up from Mr. Willemse, and I also think that other unions will support that proposal that speaks to the reduced number of workers allowed on those trucks. Chair, so that they exactly knows if they're going to support what they will support. So I've asked whether some of the information has been sent to them. If not, whether it can be sent to them. Chair, that was basically the last issue from my side, Chair. And I'm glad, Chair, before the unions is going to leave, Chair, and leave us, that we deal with other issues. We appreciate the fact, Chair, that they have made time to participate in this meeting, Chair. I've heard now the Honourable Marais say that he don't agree when it comes to regulations. The topic and the issue that we are dealing here with is farm workers, and his suggestion is that there should not be regulations that regulate the transport of farm workers basically in this state of disaster period. Chair, and I was saying that if you're going to ask for no regulations, you are asking for anarchy. There should be regulations, Chair, and I think the worker representatives agree that there should be regulations. They also understand, Chair, that dealing with Regulation 247 is going to take some time. Therefore, Chair, it brings us to the proposals made by Agriculture and the Department of Agriculture and then Agri-Western Cape, to see whether it's possible to get those regulations within the, to see whether we can get those proposals within the lockdown regulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Maran. Honourable Maran, Ms. Nikkerk could correct me, but I'm under the impression that the presentations by various guests and role players are available, and that the YouTube recording of our previous meeting would still be on YouTube for anybody that would like to go and watch. For those that would like only to see the presentation, I would recommend that you send an email or WhatsApp to Ms. Nikak, and she would gladly then forward that to you. As I've just indicated, this is public knowledge, and it is in the public domain already, but sometimes it is just easier for people to have it, on their computers, and they don't have to sit through the whole meeting just to get to the input of Agri Western Cape. So please feel free to ask that from Ms. Nikak if you would like to do so.
Chair, and then the last one. Chair, the last one was, and it was directed to Michetti. Whether in future, Chair, I have said I've not seen some of these actions or roadblocks that they have specifically targeting the transportation of farm workers. But in future, whether it's possible to send an invite to us as a committee, but also to unions, Chair, just to see that particular operation and how they are dealing with those cases. Thanks.
Good. Honourable Maran, before Ms. Chetty responds, thank you very much. I think we could also liaise with our colleagues in the Transport and Public Works Committee and ask whether we would be able to attend one of these raids. But in the list that you've been sent, I think you will realize that, they are having numerous of these raids or actions, sometimes simultaneously, and that we would only be able to obviously attend one of them at a time. And I also do believe that many of these are done at very short notice for reasons which I don't need to go into. Can I then give over Ms. Chetty, since that question has been directed directly to you, and then we'll give Mr. Willems a chance thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I think it's a good proposal from Honourable Maran. We would definitely not have a problem, Honourable Chair, to actually extend an invitation. But I think you covered what I wanted to say in terms of, it's for obvious reasons that we also don't communicate these dates in advance and things, because there's reasons behind that. But I don't think it'll be a problem if it's channeled via the Transport Committee, that we will provide an invite if that's a need, Chairperson. No problem at all.
Good, thank you. And I trust that Honourable Maran will please remember that, and when we come to our resolutions, that he would carry something to that effect into the minutes of this meeting as well. I recognize Mr. Willems.
Thanks, Chairperson. Two things. The one I was already covered, because I also wanted to remind you about the presentations, and thanks that will now be made available. I will definitely send an email. And then I just had a look through my notes. There's one thing that maybe slipped me. As part of the solutions, and I remember what I've said in terms of the accident that happened in Wellington recently, is maybe to have dedicated drivers instead of a driver that is doing a full day's work as in whatever he's doing, and then tonight he must still jump behind the wheel in transport workers. I think that is also an area that we need to look at, and like we may see if there's a possibility that we can rather have dedicated drivers that are only focusing on transporting workers. Thanks, Chair.
No, thank you for another valuable input. Thank you, Mr. Willems. Honourable Marais, and then we will say thanks to all our guests. Honourable Marais, you've got the floor.
Thank you, Chair. It's exactly when I started, my very first comment was, let's not politicize the whole issue of farm workers. Now, Honourable Marang, he's one of those members I notice he always he steers debate very close to that, knowing that there's almost 300,000 farm workers who can be influenced before the municipal elections, between now and then with a regulation, that perhaps is not in the best interest of the country, but it's in the best interest of getting farm workers votes. And I see that coming through, but I will stop there and not say anything further. Regulations is a way of bypassing opposition parties because the national minister just make a regulation without referring it to Parliament.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Honourable Marais. And on that lively note, I want to say thank you very much to all our guests here today. You are most welcome, even if you want to make input after this meeting, to email Ms. Niekerk such input. I have an education background, and one of the issues that schools grapple with is the issue of discipline. And I'm always very critical of people that say, well, now I've sorted out the discipline in my class, or I've sorted out the discipline in my school, because I came to the conclusion that this is an ongoing issue. Discipline is not resolved in one day, and then the effect of that will remain forever and ever. It's something that you will have to work on a continuous basis, day after day, and it's also a multi-pronged thing to achieve that. There's no single solution. And I believe what we've learned from you today, both from organized labor and organized agriculture and the department with its important role that it is playing, is that this is a multifaceted aspect that we will only be able to improve conditions. We will never be able to ensure complete safety for people on our roads, but it's something that we will have to work on day after day, and that there's a role to be played for everybody. It's not only the principal's job to come and sort out the discipline. If I could refer back to schools, it's parents have got a role to play in supporting the school. The children have got a role to play, the teachers, the principal, the department. So again, the same with safety. And can I just commit that we from the Western Cape Provincial Parliament will really try to play our role to the best of our ability, that we will try to influence those that need influencing, to prioritize the safety and the dignity of our farm workers. And I believe there's a role to play, a very important role to play for our unions that represent workers' interests. There's an important role to play for organized agriculture, and I just wish that more and more farmers will join organized agriculture, as more and more workers will support those that speak on behalf of them. So thank you very much to all our guests here today. I have earlier said that I found this meeting to be very interactive, very lively, and for that I want to laud each and every one of you. So thank you very much. To our guests, our meetings, as I've stated earlier, are open. You are most welcome to remain on as guests. We will now be moving to resolutions regarding our meeting. But members are also free to put up resolutions regarding future meetings. And then we have a lot of administration to deal with. So if you want to leave us now, because I presume many of you also have pressing work waiting for you, you're most welcome to do so. We are just grateful for the time that you have set aside to come and join us in this meeting and to serve the topic of safety of farm workers by dedicating so much time to us. Thank you very much, and have a great remainder of this afternoon to you one and all. Honourable members, if you could just stay on, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Good, thank you very much. Honourable members, that brings us then to resolutions. And there have been a number of suggestions throughout this meeting that I believe are worthy of us capturing that as formal resolutions. And if I could give you an opportunity to start listing them now, I'll really appreciate that. Can I see by show of hands just whom of you would like to propose some resolutions? I see the hand of Honorable Marais. Are there any others at this time? Honorable Moran, there was an earlier one which I asked you also to put in your back pocket and to submit as a resolution later on. Okay, thank you. I see first Honorable Marais and then Honorable Moran's hands.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chairman. I think we should consider having a resolution where we urge the National Treasury, government at large, to consider subsidizing either through tax rebates or direct subsidies to farmers' unions in order to provide more reliable and safe transport to farm workers. It's an added cost. It's very strange for government to tell business what their expenditures should be. Now, this is a case where we are going to try and tell the farmers how much they must spend. And that is irregular. So I would like to see that either subsidization, direct subsidization, or tax rebates be given to sort of enhance the issue of reasonable, safe transport to farm workers. Because like you said, Mr. Chair, farmers is not a transport agency. They're in the business of farming, not in the business of transport. So I would like to put that one forward. And secondly, that greater consideration should be given to the establishment of more farm villages to make access to their workplace much easier for farm workers.
Thank you for those proposals, honourable members. Can I, if I'm not going to get any other response, I'm going to accept that you all are happy to support that.
Chair, I've raised my hand before
Yes.
You say that.
Can we quickly just, Honourable Maran, first get clarity on whether Honourable Marais' resolution or proposed resolution is supported? Honourable Maseku.
Thank you very much, Chair. I am not in support of us jumping the sphere of government, especially on the issue of that subsidy, because we have to interact with the Minister and the Standing Committee of the Transport so that we can have a buy-in with the Standing Committee and the Minister of the Transport and Public Works. So it will be easier that way if we handle it in the right way so that it doesn't fail, we don't fail. Yes, we can lobby the minister, the National Minister of COCTA, to come and listen to us and the other ministers from the national. But in pushing on a legislative way of the subsidy that can enforce, to empower the department to enforce something that is for the benefit of the farm workers, we have to do it correctly so and rightfully so. So I don't think us starting there is going to help us to do that as easier as if we could have gone nicely with the steps to move up to that.
Thank you, Honourable Maseku. Can I just ask, if I understand you correctly, you're not against the principle of us highlighting the need for safe and subsidized transport for the poor, and then particularly the rural poor, and particularly then farm workers. That principle, it's just whether we should go straight to the minister or how should we word it to highlight that need. Do I
That's
understand
not
you
what
correctly?
I'm saying, Chair. I'm saying that I'm against the subsidy for now because we haven't checked the other innovative ways that maybe the Department of Transport can bring to us to handle that as urgently as we want it to happen. Because if we are talking subsidy, it's going to be a budget. We are going to be told about the budget, and maybe, just maybe, they do have something that they can take out of their their box to say we can use this to attend to this, because it's something that needs to be attended to as to give it an agency that it needs to save lives. We are talking about people's lives, not the procedures and processes before we can champion them. So for now, it's a no-go for me until we check that the Department of Transport they don't have anything that they can bring to the table.
Honorable Maran.
Chair, thanks. Look, Chair, I'm just looking at the resolutions that we have taken in the first meeting. And the discussions basically, I would unfold, Chair, basically, it's not far from the discussions that we had in the first meeting. And I think, Chair, the resolutions that we have taken in that first meeting should be carried over to this particular meeting, Chair. If we, instance, if we look at the resolution, like Agri-Western Cape, the 50% issue, Chair, it should remain. Then, Chair, they should engage with the National Minister of the National Transport Department regarding Rule 247. Chair, that should remain. The Department of Agriculture ensure that road safety is a... So the point that I made, Chair, is that I think that these resolutions that we have taken on the 10th of should also be the resolutions. It's only those, Chair, where there's new recommendations or resolutions that should be included, that should be attached. The issue of consider the provincial government to subsidize the transportation of farm workers. If it's not part, it should be made part. And also, Chair, mine was basically that we should send a request to the Public Works and Transport to invite us, whether it's to one of those roadblocks, Chair, to invite both the committee and then also some of the unions, just to see, Chair, how that particular, how they do it. So, Chair, I'm still at the recommendations. If you look, for instance, at the committee resolutions, conduct a follow-up meeting on the 18th of May. It have happened, we should remove that one. Resolve that we have a oversight visit on the 7th of May. We should remove that one, Chair, those two on top. But I think the rest, Chair, should remain. Thanks.
Good. Thank you very much. I just think that we shouldn't conflate now a number of issues. The first one is that, you know, Agri-Western Cape at our previous meeting indicated that there is no public transport readily available for farm workers. And then Honourable Marais today made a point that we should actually ask the central government to address the issue of safe public transport. And I almost want to say that, you know, public transport in all countries eventually entails some form of subsidization. So we don't even need to mention the word subsidization. So that was the first one. Then the second one is just that in terms of the limitation of the 50%, what we have heard from Agri-Western Cape is that, and I think that would also be a way to encourage people to, for example, fit vehicles with those kinds of structures that would leave people sitting almost like people are sitting in a bus, that apart from the COVID-19 regulations, which obviously require social distancing, that 50% of the vehicles registered mass is used where, for example, people are required to stand on the back of vehicles, etc., where they almost move as if the liquid would move on the back of a vehicle, that then 50% of the vehicles registered mass is recommended for the safety and for no other reason, and that you know, obviously their transport protocol also actually discourages or prohibits the standing of workers on the back of trucks and buckies and so on. But can I just go back, because we now just need to, we've got a proposal from Honourable Marais, which Honourable Maseku then expressed dissatisfaction or difference from. And I think we can meet one another probably halfway by highlighting the lack of public transport for probably good reasons for rural workers. Honourable Bartman, would you be able to help us out of this? Because I think it is something that needs to be addressed.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I would like to make a suggestion that because subsidies and levies and things like that under general usually falls under the National Treasury, that we have a joint meeting with the WCPP Committee on Transport and Public Works, that we call, in terms of that joint meeting, the National Treasury to brief us on subsidies or possible avenue for subsidies for the public transport sector, with a particular emphasis on the safety of farm workers and transport for farm workers specifically. Because essentially, if there's a subsidy for public transport and specifically for the safety of farm workers, then National Treasury will likely have to make a decision in this regard. And unfortunately, provinces don't have this particular mandate, as far as I know. If we do, then I think we should then also ask Provincial Treasury then to be in that meeting so that we can ask follow-up questions. But I do think that National Treasury, given their particular mandate under the National Department of Transport and Public Works, will have to take the lead when it comes to subsidies, because also if they give subsidies to the Western Cape, they will likely have to give subsidies to all provinces. And that is my suggestion, which will, I hope, assist us with combining the suggestion by Honourable Marais as well as Honourable Moran, as well as dealing with the mandate concern of Member Honourable Maseko. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Honourable Members. There's a proposed resolution on the table. Unless I hear any other voices, can we then adopt that one? I see 3 hands. Honourable Moran again, Honourable Maseko, Honourable Marais. Moran, is that an old hand, Honourable? Can we go on to Honourable Maseko?
I agree with Member Honourable Bartman as she structured it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that support. Honourable Moran, I see you're unmuted now.
It's an old hand, Chair.
Thank you. Then Honourable Marais.
This is a new answer. I think that Honourable Bartman has brought sanity to the discussion. I want to thank and compliment her on the suggestion and the compromise which she brought to the table. It's vital that we engage in terms of cooperative governance with national, and not always say this is a national power. There is room in the Constitution for cooperation between the 3 spheres of government, and this is one instance where we should make full use of it, and I want to thank Honourable Bartman. I should support that.
Good, thank you. Pass then. Any further resolutions? Honourable Moran, perhaps if you could just, you want us to reconfirm our resolutions of the February meeting? Is that what you're asking for? With perhaps just getting clarity on that issue of the 50% payload? Moran is quiet now. Good. Any further proposals, Honourable Members? There was a proposal from Honourable Moran, and I do hope you can hear me, that we ask our colleagues in the Standing Committee on Transport and Public Works whether we would be able to join them on an early morning, can we call it a traffic blockade or inspection point? Would that carry support?
Sir, if I may, with
yes,
your permission,
please.
The Metro Police, I don't know how far we are, but we were going to, shall I say, elevate their authority to go across borders, calling them highway patrolmen. Maybe it's time we should engage with the Premier again and with a relevant minister, how far we are in patrolling the highways, which is mostly used by farmers to get their farm workers from one point to the next point. I don't think that is something municipal police can patrol effectively. We need highway patrolmen. It's just an idea. If members don't agree, maybe they have a different suggestion. But to expect municipal police, metro policemen to do that, it just won't take off.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Murray. I do refer you to the document that was circulated regarding the number of and the dates and the times and the places where such traffic initiatives were launched after our previous meeting. And they also listed there whether there were some offences, whether people were fined and what they were fined for. But just to come back to the question, Honourable Maran earlier asked that we be invited, and we then believed it would be best if we could do that in cooperation with our colleagues in the portfolio or the Standing Committee on Transport and Public Works. Can we just first limit it to that? Honourable Bartman, I recognise your hand.
Thank you, Chair. Just a general note, I'm not exactly sure how the Committee on Transport and Public Works usually go and visit the traffic blocks, because to my knowledge, usually information such as venue and operations are usually confidential, and the committee only knows, for example, where it happens, so that a person can go do an oversight, so that one does not, for example, send over WhatsApp to respective people. I know, for example, in finance legislation, when a private company sends us information, they can send confidential information to us that binds the committee members. And I just want to find out through you, Chair, if you and the procedural officer can perhaps engage in terms of finding out how that usually works and then communicate to us, because I also don't want us to put, for example, on the programming committee the venue, for example, and then it defeats the point of the roadblock as well. I'm hoping you're able to assist. I'm not sure how to properly put the request. Thank you.
I would propose that we just make our wishes known and say that this committee wishes to take part and to witness this, particularly during the harvesting season, which is summertime, and when many people are being transported from their homes to farms and to packing sheds and so on. So would you be happy, honourable members, if we just express our interest or wish to be able to witness something like that, and that should the Standing Committee on Transport and Public Works organise something like that, that they would also invite us. And I think we leave it with that. The exact time, place, and so on, whether they would like to communicate that at short notice or whether they would first just give us a general indication. But my understanding of Honourable Maran's request was that he would just like to see, what is happening on the ground. How is that being policed? And that will probably then also address the issue of Honourable Murray on whether municipal and other traffic police are able to play that role, or whether it should be what he called highway patrol that would be needed. Okay, so I think with that, I hopefully combine this, and we hopefully will achieve what Honourable Maran had in mind. Thank you, Honourable Maran. Please speak for yourself. You were a bit cut off or silent.
Chair, thanks very much. No, Chair, I'm happy the way that you put it, but just in response to the Honourable Bartman, especially when there's multiple departments that will be involved in such an operation, Chair, the fear that we as members might send out to different people that there will be this event, when there's multiple departments, Chair, that will partake in an operation, the possibility that even some of them might send out the message to whoever they think should need it. I don't think there should be a fear, Chair, that members basically will make them guilty by sending out information about a operation that will take place. But I'm fine, Chair, with the manner in how you put it. Thanks very much.
No, thank you, Honourable Moran. And I must say, I also didn't pick up from Ms. Chetty any hesitation in sharing that information with us and inviting us. It seems to me the department said their only proviso is that we work through the Standing Committee on Transport and Public Works. Honourable members, if I may propose, I must say I was pleased to learn that after our previous meeting, that there have been a certain attention paid to the transport of workers on the back of vehicles, especially in those areas well known for providing workers, seasonal workers. So I think if you would agree with me, we should commend the Department of Transport and Public Works for acting on us highlighting this issue at an earlier meeting. Then secondly, I also found it quite heartwarming that the Department of Agriculture is now including road safety as one of the aspects in its rural safety plan. I think that is also a positive. And then thirdly, I think if we could just ask the Department of Agriculture in engaging with agriculture, organized agriculture, that they would keep on emphasizing the need to treat workers with dignity, and that the concentration on the safety and the well-being of workers should start not only on the once they arrive on the farm, but also on the way there. Would that carry your support, honourable members? Both those proposals?
Support.
Good. Thank you very much.
No problem with it. No problem with it.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. And then can I also propose that we ask of the Department of Agriculture to emphasize the good practices that some farmers have. I do know it's been described as the Rolls Royces and the Ferraris, but I do think that, you know, if we can have some examples or good practices in transporting workers, such as what you've seen there on the photographs during and that was observed during our oversight visit for those that could attend. I think those are the kind of good practices. It's always good to you know, just highlight best practice and ask others to try and strive to also, you know, live up to those good practices. So if I could propose that, and then perhaps if we could ask, and I'm very sorry that the Road Traffic Management Corporation didn't attend today's meeting, but if we could ask either Road Traffic Management Corporation or perhaps even the South African Bureau of Standards to also perhaps try and add to the debate and the designs of such structures to improve the safety of people and to meet the needs of the industry for those trucks still to be you know, able to do what is generally called farm work. I can just say to those of you that were unable to join us on the day, those structures that we saw are particularly designed so that a forklift can lift them up from the back of a truck, put them down next to the truck, and then 5 o'clock or whenever the workers stop working, that within minutes those structures can be refitted to those trucks, and they give a lot of shelter. In the case of the one, I think one improvement might even have been to add a little bit more ventilation if one takes into account that harvesting season is often during the warm months of the year. And obviously with COVID, we all know that ventilation has become a very important aspect. So if we could ask the Department of Agriculture to also in engaging with agriculture, highlight these best practices and ask other farmers that can afford to do so to also buy into this whole concept. Agreed? Thank you. Any other resolutions regarding the safe and dignified transport of farm workers? Just the last one, honourable members, I would also like to just propose that we extend a word of thanks to the people that have made input, to particularly our trade unions as well, and also encourage them to remain the voice of workers. I think what is wonderful is that they can often engage with employers at a level where an individual worker would be reluctant to do so, because there's always the fear of intimidation, there's always the fear of an uneven balance of powers in such engagements, even when it comes to negotiations regarding the safety of workers. So that we thank the unions and also encourage them to not only fight for better wages, etc., but that the working conditions that they fight for will also include the safe transport or not fight for, let's use a better word, that they strive to establish would also include the safe transport of farm workers. Are you happy with that?
Yes, Chair. I just before leaving, thank you for the professional way you've conducted this meeting.
No, thank you, and thank you for those kind words, Honourable Maria. I do know it's 4 o'clock and we've actually come to the end of our scheduled time for this meeting. If honourable members, if I could just quickly ask our procedural officer then to flight the minutes of the 4th and the 7th of May, so that we can quickly just accept some of the documents that are outstanding at this point in time. And while she's doing that, Honourable Maran, I recognise your hand.
Thanks. No, Chair, I just thought before the Honourable Marais leave, I'm not sure whether you already
He's
left.
still on. He's still on.
Chair, that he should actually withdraw, Chair, making a statement that fighting for the rights of farm workers is basically a campaign from the ANC to get their votes. Chair, this is about the safety and the lives of farm workers and nothing to do with votes. Okay. This is an issue that we have discussed when there was no election in sight. So the Honourable Marais is way far off the road.
Okay. Thank you, Honourable Maran. Can I just say, I presume that you've actually raised this by way of a point of order, and my ruling is, we are in an environment where free debate is allowed, and where people must decide for themselves whether they believe what we say or not, and whether it's applies. It's not something that I believe anybody should withdraw, but your view is that you do not agree with Honourable Marais is recorded. Good. Honourable members, the minutes of the 4th of May, you see it there. Our procedural officer will quickly scroll through it.
Sorry, Chair, before we start with that, can I be given an opportunity to talk to you?
On the meeting, or would you like us to
on the meeting
suspend? Yes, please. I recognize your hand.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, it has been some few meetings that I don't know how are you going to handle this as a chair, but Honourable Marais, the language that she uses against another members, the comments that he makes against us, they are really untoward and not acceptable. And most of the time, me personally, I hold myself in responding to that.
Thank you, Honourable Maseku. Yes, no, thank you very much. Can I just ask that if you want to raise something?
So I'm going to say, wait for me to finish, Chair, and then you'll respond. Can we do it that way?
Sorry.
Through you, please.
Sorry, Honorable, can I just say, if you would like to raise, you must raise it as a point of order and a formal point of order, please. I wouldn't like us to deviate from accepted procedural and meeting practices. So please, once we start addressing each other or each other's conduct, can we do that formally by having a point of order? And then obviously that point of order must be linked to a specific item or a specific action of a member. It can't be just in a general complaint on general conduct.
Okay, Chair. I was taking because of the abnormality of how we hold our meetings. I wouldn't want to interject all the time of the point of order. I just wanted to highlight it as a chair so that we can address. But if you give me a blank check of the point of orders, I will respectfully do so. Thank you very much.
Yes, no, thank you. I honestly believe that, points of order are part of accepted meeting practice, and it will help us to stick within, the proceedings as per our rules of the Western Cape Provincial Parliament. Okay, we're back to the minutes. 4th of May, you've had an opportunity. It was emailed to you all. Any corrections, or can we support the minutes as circulated? Honourable Bartman?
Move to support.
Thank you. General, accepted. Thank you. The 7th of May. Thank you. The 7th of May, you see it on your screens as well. Page 1, page 2. Thank you. Honourable Bartman.
Move to support.
Good. Thank you very much. Generally accepted? Accepted. I now ask, and this is a slightly longer report, the quarterly report for January to March 2021. It has also been circulated before. Honourable members, I do hope that you've had an opportunity. I do know this is hectic times to go through that report. I can assure you I've engaged with our procedural officer, and I'm happy that it reflects accurately the proceedings of our meetings. Any proposals that we adopt this? Honourable Bartman?
Propose to adopt.
Thank you very much. Any other views or corrections? None, so it's generally accepted. Thank you. The next one is the tracking document, as at the 18th of May 2021. Tracking document being the document that tracks all our resolutions and whether we've been able to attend and which are still open or which still require our attention. Thank you, Ms. Niekerk. It's there on the screen. It was also circulated earlier. Any views on this? Thank you, Honourable Bartman.
Move to adopt.
Thank you. No other views? Thank you. It's generally then accepted or adopted as a correct summary of our tracking of our resolutions and where we stand with them. The next one is now our program going forward. Sorry, this is the program for the previous year. Is that correct, Ms. Niekerk?
Chairperson, it's the program for this financial year. So it's what we've done since April up until now.
Today, the 18th of May. Thank you very much.
And going forward, yeah.
Thank you. Can I have proposals that we also adopt that? Thank you, Ms. Bartman. Honourable Bartman.
Chair, do we need to adopt this because isn't this the previous year's program?
No, sorry, this is this year's program, just a summary since the beginning of April up to today of what we've been doing. There you see
Okay, then
summary
that's
of all,
fine. Then I move
summary
to
of
adopt
all our
them.
meetings. It's fine with you and the other members. So thank you very much. Generally accepted. And then the last one is the one for the previous year, Honorable Bartman. It covers the financial year 2020 to 2021. It's our annual report as a committee. Again, it has been circulated. And it has been proofread by a number of people. It's quite a number of pages. Thank you, Honorable Bartman. I do see your hand.
Move to adopt.
Thank you. Generally accepted. Any other views? None? Adopted then. Thank you very much, honorable members. I really want to say thank you very much to you one and all. We've gone 10 minutes past our scheduled time, and I'm really grateful that we were able to deal with the administration as well. And again, from my side, thank you for a lively interaction, lively debate. Thank you for the engagement that you've had. And I do want to express my belief that this will, in any case, contribute to a renewed viewpoint on the safety and the risks, and particularly also the dignity when it comes to the transport of farm workers. Thank you very much. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday, the 1st of June, also at 1 o'clock, and it will be a briefing by the various departments, national and provincial, on the alien invasive species and the clearing thereof, especially in the light of the fact that we as a committee earlier asked a question from the Minister Bradell, on the water losses. Now, you know, one of the water consumers that have been, highlighted or identified is the presence of alien trees in the water catchment areas. And then Honorable Moran will also be able to confirm that when we visited the whole Slootweer and the Brandvlei Dam, that the presence of invasive species was highlighted there as well as one of the very important topics to ensure that, you know, the runoff to our dams are maximized. And then obviously there's also got environmentally or biodiversity implications if large species of our mountains and water catchment areas are taken over by alien vegetation. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward to see you all again on the 1st of June, 2021. And with that, I want to say thank you very much and have a great remainder of this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, members.